This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Lady Kate trying to see it out, but Monomoy Girl is bearing down, and here she comes. Monomoy Girl takes charge at the 8th pole, opens up a length into half. Lady Kate is battling on, but Lady Kate is back into second, and Monomoy Girl does it again. Monomoy Girl just keeps on winning. There's 1 furlong to go. Maxfield fully extended on the front end. Visitant is running hard, but is still second. Roadster trying to hang on to third. Chest Chief late on the scene, but nobody catches Maxfield, who glides under the wire, the 3-length winner.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
As they arrive at the 8th pole, Dream Shake on the outside. On the inside, Jackie's Warrior just keeps on battling. Defended is third. Jackie's Warrior fighting off the challenge of Dream Shake. These two, nose to nose, coming down to the wire. Here's the finish. Jackie's Warrior would not be denied in the Paint Day Mile. Seek Again is coming through at the rail. It's Wise Dan in front. Seek Again on the inside. Sticking with him. Wise Dan. Seek Again. The two of them come down to the line together. And it's Wise Dan. He just doesn't know how to get beat.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Happy Saturday. 7 days, 11 hours, 55 minutes, and 30 seconds away from the 151st Run for the Roses. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, welcoming you to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum, and it is presented every week by our friends at TwinSpires right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Looking forward to the next 3 hours. I'm with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's catch you up on what's occurred over the course of the past 24 hours or so as it pertains to the Derby picture. Built for Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners, as expected, going to run in the Pat Day Mile on the Derby undercard. So he comes out of the Derby field, which puts Neo Equos, the Florida bred, in for trainer Saffie Joseph Jr. This will be Saffie's 4th Derby starter. The next two on the list, at number 21, Rendered Judgment for Ken McPeak, and Baeza for trainer John Sheriffs. A lot of people, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, unhappy that Baeza is not already in the field, but because of the fact that he was running against small fields in Southern California and comes out of that Santa Anita Derby, his points totals were reduced per the rules of the Derby point system here in 2025. So he's on the outside looking in. Those two will find themselves on the also eligible list later tonight after post positions are drawn. It is opening night at Churchill Downs. It's going to be a spectacular evening of racing, and it kicks off Kentucky Derby week and the Oaks and Derby post position draw taking place at the racetrack later tonight. So a lot of things to look forward to. Yesterday, Flying Mohawk worked 5 furlongs in 1 minute in company with Drexel Hill for trainer Whit Beckman. Whit is hoping to be able to join us around 9 o'clock Eastern to talk about that work and to talk about Drexel Hill in the Kentucky Oaks. He does have workers this morning. He's going to try and squeeze some time in for us at 9 a.m. So keep that in mind, hoping to talk with Whit about Flying Mohawk. At Keeneland, you have Rapoli Stables Grande working 5 furlongs yesterday. He did that in company in 101 over what was a fast track. Did that right around 7:30 in the morning. And at Turfway Park yesterday, really good work for Chunk of Gold. He went 5 furlongs in company, 59.20 under jockey Jareth Loveberry. He did that over the all-weather track for trainer Ethan West. And if you missed Ethan about a month ago, joining me on Trainer Talk, you can go back and listen to the conversation. He spent a lot of time talking about Chunk of Gold, that relationship with Jareth Loveberry, and why he felt weeks ago that he had a horse that could compete on the first Saturday in May. And then here he is with a great workout looking ahead to next Saturday's Run for the Roses. Now today, there was some weather in the area around Churchill Downs in central Kentucky over the course of the past 12 or 13 hours. A lot of rain yesterday. that has affected some of the plans from some of the workers. We're going to talk with Kevin Kerstein in the second hour of the program, 9:20. Kevin is, if you don't follow him on social media, go do it. He posts videos of all the workers every single morning. He's been doing that now for a couple of weeks. Every horse that's on the track, he's got you covered. We actually retweeted some of those for you this morning at HRRN on our X page. You can go back and take a look at those. But Kevin's going to be here at 9:20 to fill us in on what's happening today. This is traditionally the big work day. 1 week away from the Derby. Most of the contenders put in their final preparations today. American Promise did that. We saw Burnham Square on the track earlier. Again, Kevin will have updates. But scheduled to work today, in addition to those two, East Avenue, Final Gambit, Journalism, the likely favorite, Rodriguez, Sovereignty, and Tappan Street. I'll ask him what plans have changed, if any, for some of those contenders, but we'll talk to him coming up in a little bit. You're also going to hear, speaking of Sovereignty, from Jockey Junior Alvarado. He sat down yesterday for about 15, 20 minutes with me, and we talked about so many different aspects of a jockey being in the Kentucky Derby. But we talked about what Junior has gone through over the course of the past 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks. He was going into the Florida Derby with Sovereignty, and a couple days before the race, he ends up being injured. He's off his mounts, can't ride for three weeks. So he misses the Florida Derby. Manny Franco picks up the mount, ends up finishing second, no fault of his own. Just came up second best behind Tappan Street that day. But here's Junior sitting on the sidelines wondering what's going to happen now with his Derby mount, the horse that he has ridden in all of his starts. Does he stay on him? Does Bill Mott take him off if Manny Franco ends up doing something special with him in the Florida Derby? So there was all that uncertainty for a very short time. But he talks about that in this conversation that I had with him, and it's really, really cool stuff. You're going to hear that interview coming up right around 8:35 in the first hour of the show. So plenty of things to talk about here this morning. Oaks Derby conversation, as you might expect. Also going to look ahead to opening day of Woodbine's meet. You're going to hear from CEO Michael Copeland, the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. He'll be with me later in the program to look ahead to not just opening weekend, but he'll talk about this meet, and he'll talk about some of the things that had to be done in order to make this meet come together. That was a little, not touch and go, but there was some give and take between Woodbine and the Horsemen as we were getting close to this opening day. So I'll talk to Michael about that later in the program. Speaking of Woodbine in Canada, congratulations to all of the Sovereign Award winners that were handed out this past week, including our dear friend and colleague here on the network, Jeff Bloom of Bloom Racing. His champion 3-year-old male, Dresden Rowe, officially receiving that honor and that Sovereign Award this past week, trained by Lauren Richards, owned by True North Stable and Jeff's Bloom Racing Stable. So congratulations to them. If you remember, Jeff had that magical ride with Midnight Bisou, and then here he is in Canada this past week getting a Sovereign Award. Pretty good. I sent him a message, and if you recall, when he was a jockey, he won the Manitoba Derby in Canada, and now he's getting a Sovereign Award for champion 3-year-old male with Dresden Rowe. So Canada's been pretty good to Jeff Bloom, and congrats to him and to his family and to the entire team, and to all of the Sovereign Award winners. Really great stuff this past week. My poll question for you, I mentioned that the post position draw is taking place tonight for both the Oaks and the Derby. Will post position change your opinion about a horse you like in the Kentucky Derby? I'll give you a few choices. Definitely. You can choose definitely. Yeah, it's definitely going to change your opinion. Or post, doesn't matter. And then the third choice, only if it's 17. And I say that because 17, the only post position in the history of the Kentucky Derby, 150 runnings, to have never produced a Kentucky Derby winner. 0 for 45. The last horse to finish in the money from post 17 was 49er in 1988, who finished second that year. The last horse to finish in the top 5, Don't Get Mad, who was fourth in 2005. So those are your choices. You can go to X, at HRN on X, to cast your vote, or you can do it on Facebook as well And if you don't do social media, email the show. Tell you that every week. Email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. So many of you do that. Really appreciate it. And let me know. Will post position change your opinion about a horse you like in the Kentucky Derby? Definitely. Post doesn't matter, or only if it's 17. That's your poll question. Time now to check in with Lee Delapina for this week's Impossible Trivia question.
All right, thanks, Mike. What Oscar-winning filmmaker was co-owner of 2003 Kentucky Derby fourth-place finisher? That's what I'm talking about. No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
All right, that answer coming your way right around 10:55 Eastern. Stay with us for that. I'll update you on the trivia question as we move throughout the program here this morning. When I come back after this first break, you're going to hear from Lori Douglas and Bethany Walton of Farm Paint. Every year on this show, as we get ready to embark upon the spring season, you start looking at doing some things with your barns, your fences, your footings around the paddock areas and around the barn areas. I get a chance to visit with these two ladies, and they tell you about the opportunities and the products available at Farm Paint. I think you're really going to enjoy that conversation in just a few minutes. Junior Alvarado, 8:35. 9 o'clock, Whit Beckman. 9:20, Kevin Kerstein with an update live from Churchill Downs. Michael Copeland, the Woodbine CEO, at 9:40. 10 o'clock Eastern, Hour 3 kicks off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek looks ahead to 3 races on the Churchill opening night program. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will both be with me for I Ask, They Answer to wrap up the show. A lot of things to get to here this morning. Very busy morning. Pre-Derby edition of the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Tenda Equine and Pet Care products have been keeping world-class equine athletes happy and healthy for generations. Keep your equine athlete looking and performing well with Tenda Next Generation Wound and Skin Care Treatment, along with nutritional supplements, leg and muscle care products, salves, hoof care, poultice, topical aids, and grooming products. Visit tendahorse.com today.
Keeneland Sales is proud to present FUPAG Week. All this week on HRRN.
It all comes down to this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
The moment that defines the year, when the world's most influential buyers gather, and every decision, every bid, every opportunity shapes the future. At a marketplace that brings the thoroughbred world together, and where futures are forged, because every moment matters. At the World's Yearling Sale, Keeneland, September.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Legend of Time makes a move for the lead, taking over from Formidable Man. Right there, too, is Akbar, and then to the outside, here's Neat putting in a run, and coming on to is Trickery, who's a big long shot, charging in between horses. A wild finish here, Cugino is coming too. His Formidable Man fighting back on the inside. On the outside is Trickery. Trickery has taken the lead. He's 47-1, and Trickery and Umberto Rispoli knew it. Formidable Man was second, and then came Laginos, followed by Cugino at 143.59.
That's Larry Comas with the call of last year's American Turf, won by Trickery, a son of Oscar Performance, who stands over at Mill Ridge. Our dear friends at Mill Ridge doing a great job with all of their stallions, but Oscar Performance, Mike, you think about what that horse accomplished last year and now what he's doing here in 2025. He just is so consistent. Number one in greatest stakes winners over all third crop sires by percentage of starters in 2024. And it wasn't just Trickery. There were other outstanding horses. And the winner is, for example, winner of the Grade 3 Knickerbocker. He had Endlessly, the Grade 3 Jeff Ruby Stakes winner. Tumbarumba, the Grade 3 Fred Hooper winner. So he continues to just throw runners out there, and you'll want to check out millridge.com to learn more about that. And we're going to see the American Turf coming up again this year on the Derby undercard. That's always a great race, and really looking forward to it again here in 2025. Well, each year on this show, as many of you are thinking about getting ready for spring, and that includes freshening up your fences and your barns and working on some of your arena footings that you might have and some of those types of things around the property. I have the opportunity to visit with two very special ladies, Lori Douglas and Bethany Walton of Farm Paint. You can go to farmpaint.com to learn more about their products. Lori, I'll start with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
You know, every year we sit here and we say, how do we make paint sexy to talk about? But it is so important when you're looking at freshening up your property or even if you're doing a new build. Farmpaint.com, the place to go.
Yes, indeed. We have just about everything you want on farmpaint.com. Anywhere from barn and fence paint, roof and foundation coatings, driveway sealers. We have equine healthcare products. We've got it all. Arena footing, you name it. Arena dust control.
And we're going to talk about all of those products, but I do want to start on the paint side for a minute here. What is it about Farm Paint's paint product that sets it apart from others?
Well, we have designed all of our water-based acrylic paints. They are 100% acrylic. We've designed them all with a very unique elastomeric polymer and a UV inhibitor. All of that being said, the paint has a lot of stretch to it. It soaks into the wood. It allows the wood to expand and shrink in the different weather patterns so you don't get chipping, popping, peeling. More importantly, you get no fading, as you would with lacquer-based or oil-based products. You know, they tend to fade out in high heat in the sun. We've got an amazing product. I mean, we're selling it all over the country right now, and with no complaints. Everyone loves it. So we're pretty proud of it.
Well, as I mentioned, Bethany Walton also with us, as she has been the past several years. Bethany, it's been a very, very wet year in Kentucky. We know that, a cold year. So as soon as this weather breaks, my goodness, you are going to be extremely busy.
We are. Hey, Mike, it's nice to be back again this year. Thanks for having us. This spring and winter has been a very, very long one for us in Kentucky and most of the country. Again, like Lori said, we do send our paint all over the country, so that has been nice because we're still able to sell paint, you know, even while Kentucky is battling the very wet and cold conditions.
Tell me a little bit more about your role.
So my role, I'm based out of the Kentucky store, pretty much handling everything in Kentucky. Lori travels quite a bit more than I do, but I am in Kentucky handling most of the big farms here that we have, the big accounts, getting out to the farms, shaking hands, making sure they know they have somebody that's only a phone call away, keeping that in-person contact with the farms here in Kentucky.
Lori just walked through some of the characteristics that make Farm Paint's paint so special and so different from other products that might be out there. Obviously, when you talk to people, I'm sure you bring up those key points. But when people call you, Bethany, and they start telling you about their experience with the paint, what are some of the things you hear from your customers?
Well, the funny thing is I had a guy not too long ago. He said that he had painted 6-7 years ago, and it looked like he had just painted it last week. So he was very, very pleased. Had another guy he had painted and just loved our product from 10 years ago and, you know, didn't really need a freshening up, but his wife wanted it to be freshened up, so that's what he did. And, you know, he was just very pleased with the product, the longevity of the product, the quality of the product, and then our customer service. You know, that's the thing that we strive to set us apart, especially other than the quality of our products. We're a phone call away, and we strive to make sure that everyone knows how important they are.
Well, I think that's the thing that we've tried to emphasize over the years in this conversation on this show. Lori, we've talked about that for a long time. If anybody has any questions, if anything happens with the product that they do receive, whatever the case might be, for years, you have been right there for them, and I think that means an awful lot.
Yes, indeed. In fact, the number on the farmpaint.com website is 877-441-3276, and that actually comes direct to my cell phone. So I get just about every call off that website. So I am all day long, and so isn't Bethany. We bounce back and forth all day long. We're both placing orders. We're both answering questions. We're both helping customers all day long right off of the website.
Paint's the core product, but there are so many other products that you offer to folks who have farms and horsemen, not just in Kentucky but around the country. So talk about, Lori, a couple of those other key products.
Yeah, one of them is our Thor Turf, which is 100% dust-free footing that we manufacture. We have a few different types of footing. We have a non-fibered, we have a fibered footing. We now have a race turf. We also have a pro turf. It's been selling like wildfire here lately. I mean, it's been amazing. We've got so much interest in our Thor turf. We've sold it all around the country. Bethany has been just a rock star with selling it. So yeah, I'll let her kind of lead into a little bit of what she's been experiencing this past year with Thor turf. We're pretty excited about Thor turf right now. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So the funny thing is actually just sold an arena to Oregon State. So we are not limited to just in Kentucky or just in Ohio. We are literally shipping it all over the country. The thing that sets our footing apart is the longevity of the product. We have arenas that have been out for 15 plus years showing no signs of breaking down. And they're not having to be recoated like other synthetic footings on the market. It is ready to go when it gets to you. Get somebody to install it that knows what they're doing, and people love the product. Completely dustless, like Lori said, never needs to be watered, doesn't freeze. We have something for everybody. The Pro Turf is newer to us. It is geared more towards the Western and reining discipline. That has been an amazing product that we've added this year or in the last year. Absolutely, like Lori said, I get multiple calls or emails daily inquiring about our Thor Turf.
Tell me more about the race turf. What is that all about?
So the race turf, as you know, racing has a magnifying glass on it right now. So again, like all of our products are geared towards the horse and the horseman. Everything is made with the horse in mind. So we have developed a product that we feel getting it into some of these racetracks, getting it into some of these gallops, you're going to see less injuries. You're going to see less soft tissue injuries. You're going to see less ligament issues, and hopefully leading to less breaking down.
Okay, so the race turf is like a synthetic racing surface or training surface, for example, like you would see at Turfway Park with the artificial surface.
That's correct. But what makes it different, it is not a wax-coated product, so therefore it doesn't change. It stays consistent 365 days a year, doesn't change with the weather. It is a very consistent footing. That's what sets us apart.
Lori, are products like the Thor Turf and the Pro Turf, are those also available for use outdoors, or are they strictly indoors?
They are absolutely for outdoors. We sell just as many outdoor arenas and walking paths and exercisers, all of that, as we indoor and outdoor. Mm-hmm. So that's the beauty of it. We're basically not only dust free, but we're temperature friendly. We do not freeze, which is huge for Thor Turf. And it's been an amazing product. And we also, and Thor Turf it's a very high end product, and people that maybe might not be able to afford the Thor Turf, we have another option. We have our Arena Dust Control product, which is basically just a high-quality mineral type of an oil that's completely eco-friendly. And, they can spray that down on their dusty arenas, and we guarantee no dust for 10 to 12 months, and then every year they just touch it up with a third of the amount they started with. So that's another really nice product.
Lori Douglas, Bethany Walton here from FarmPaint.com. Bethany, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
To follow up on the EquiClear, something that I find interesting, especially going back to all products are made for the horse and the horseman in mind, our Equiclear is also chloride-free, which I have just recently found there are several allergies to for the horse and the horseman. So that is something that makes that product very attractive to people because it is eco-friendly and it is chloride-free. So that's, again, keeping the horse and the rider in mind. We're trying to put a product out there that is good for everybody.
Lori, tell me more about Tenda.
Yes, we have equine products on there. We sell a lot of hoof oils, liniments, paste, calming paste. We have an amazing Ictamol on there. I mean, it's the real true Ictamol, if you know what I mean. I mean, we sell it like crazy right now. We have many, many, many shampoos, and it's grown. The business has just grown hugely over the last several years. We have our own manufacturing plant in Sandusky, Ohio. It's a beautiful facility where they manufacture all the products. So, yes, they all are American-made and shipped all over the country. So we have a lot going on with Tenda right now, and pretty excited about Tenda.
I spend so much time every week on this show, obviously talking about the thoroughbred racing industry, and the products that we're talking about certainly fit the racing industry. But if you own a horse, you can benefit from going to Farm Paint, and there's a product for you. Anybody that owns horses can benefit.
Absolutely, Mike. And, you know, the minute you go to farmpaint.com, over on the left-hand side, you'll see all of our products. You know, it starts off with barn and fence paint, arena footing, arena dust control, aluminum paint, paint sprayers, paint accessories. You go to reflective roof coatings, roof and foundation, driveway, asphalt, concrete, brick and paver. And then the last one, as you will see, is equine care. You can click on any of those and go right to where you need to be. And we also have links on our site that for ThorTurf. You click on the link and it brings you up to a beautiful new and improved ThorTurf website and a beautiful dust control arena, you know, site. So everything is on that website. It's really quite clever.
Yeah, you made that point far more eloquently than I did, Lori, as expected. Well done.
I don't know
Bethany,
about that, but thank you.
Bethany, before I let you go here, just fill me in on a couple key points you want people to know about the products.
Well, and like Lori said, you know, we've tried to make it very user-friendly. Each one of our websites all go back to farmpaint.com. We've got a calculation method on the farmpaint.com to tell you how much paint you need. We've got a calculator on the ThoroTurf website to tell you how much footing you'll need. We have a calculator on the Equiclear website to tell you how much Equiclear you'll need. And if you can't get through any of those, again, Lori and I are only a phone call away. My number is on her voicemail, so if for some reason she's on another call, you're going to get a live person. And each customer is just as important as the next. And that's the one thing that we continue to strive for is excellent customer service, an excellent product that we can stand behind, that we truly believe in, that we make pretty accessible.
Well, Lori, Bethany, we have been associated with Farm Paint here on the Horse Racing Radio Network for a very long time, and it is a pleasure to help you get the word out each and every year, and continued success. Keep it rolling. I'm glad to hear things continue to go well, and looking forward to the next year after this.
Absolutely, Mike, and thank you so much. We enjoy this every year. Fun stuff.
All right, Lori Douglas,
Absolutely.
Bethany Walton from Farm Paint, farmpaint.com, the website you can go to get all of the information. When I come back, going to turn our attention back to the Kentucky Derby picture. You're going to hear from Jockey Junior Alvarado, who is preparing to ride Sovereignty, the Fountain of Youth winner, in next week's Kentucky Derby. That comes your way right after your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
When experts gather to discuss the greatest American racehorse of all time, the list includes three that invariably rise to the top of the conversation: Man o' War, Citation, and Secretariat. The relative merits of these three superstars may well be undeterminable in actual fact, but Citation's 3-year-old campaign was perhaps the singularly greatest individual year ever enjoyed by a racing thoroughbred. Citation's 2-year-old record was 8 wins in 9 starts, the only blemish on an otherwise perfect slate, a defeat at the hands of his Calumet stablemate Bewitch when that outstanding filly defeated him in the Washington Park Futurity. Citation was named the 2-year-old of the year and ranked alongside Bewitch at the top of the experimental free handicap. At the end of his 3-year-old campaign, Citation's weight evaluation was 15 pounds greater than that of his nearest rival. Most 3-year-olds campaigning exclusively against their own age group until the second half of the year. Not so Citation. He opened his sophomore season on the track with 2 wins against older horses. He followed that success with 2 wins against his peers before suffering a defeat in a 6-furlong prep race at Havre de Grace in Maryland. That race was to Saggy, sire of the 1968 Kentucky Derby winner, Carryback. After that, Citation racked up 15 consecutive victories. Included in that skein were an easy sweep of the Triple Crown races, so easy that it was almost anticlimactic. In the 1948 Derby, Citation was such a prohibitive favorite that Colonel Matt Wynn eliminated place in show wagering in that event. Citation won the Derby by 3.5, the Preakness by 5.5, and the Belmont by 8 open lengths. After totally demolishing and completely demoralizing all the 3-year-olds, he went on to become against older horses and won the Stars and Stripes at Washington Park in track record time. Later in the fall, he proved his stamina by sailing home to a 7-length win in the Jockey Club Gold Cup over a distance of 2 miles at Belmont Park. By the end of October, there was not a single horse willing to challenge him in the winner-take-all Pimlico Invitational. That outing turned out to be nothing more than an exhibition for public benefit, a walkover in racing parlance. By the end of 1948, Citation had won 19 of 21 races at 9 different tracks at distances from 6 furlongs to 2 miles. He had been ridden by 3 different jockeys and had won or on tracks listed as fast, good, muddy, heavy, and sloppy. He was not only 3-year-old Colt of the Year, but also Horse of the Year, and on top of that, Handicap Horse of the Year. Unfortunately, the rest of Citation's story is dotted with cases of injury and frustration. He was off the racetrack for an entire year because of various ailments. He came back to race at the age of 5 when he won an allowance race in January at Santa Anita. In his next 8 starts, he finished second 7 times with only 1 win. Incredibly, in 6 straight races, he was defeated in track record time. 5 of those losses were in world record time. Plus, he was invariably giving weight to the opposition, which makes that record doubly significant. Citation was nearly $100,000 short of becoming race's very first millionaire at the age of 6, so after a 10-month layoff, he did come back. He began that campaign slowly, but finally scored in the Argonaut Handicap, and then chalked up a second tough win in the American Handicap. Then on July 14, 1951, in his last race, he nailed down the $100,000 first prize in the Hollywood Gold Cup to attain the coveted $1 million earnings mark his owners had doggedly pursued for 3 years. In 45 career starts, Citation had 32 wins and was in the money 44 times. But that 3-year-old campaign goes unmatched to this very day. Neither Man o' War nor Secretariat campaigned at the age of Citation's later efforts, so we will never know. But Citation was indeed one of the very best horses that I personally have ever seen.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
His sire is one of the most exciting young stallions in the world. His dam has become one of the most important brood mares in the industry. And on the first Saturday in May, his genetic brilliance shined brightest on racing's biggest stage.
They come into the final 16, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby.
Mage, standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
HRRN is Proud to bring you the Derby Countdown. Bobby Neuman and Jude Feld will broadcast live from trackside and bring you interviews with trainers, jockeys, owners, and other racing insiders. Plus, keep you informed with up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Kentucky Derby. The Derby Countdown, presented by Hill and Dale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday morning during Derby Week at Churchill Downs. Go to horseracingradio.net for more information or to listen live. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Neo Equo stretching out River Thames. Sovereignty warming to the task for Alvarado. He's on the far outside into third. Gate to Wire finds his best ride. Burnham Square's bid is stalled as River Thames has made a clear lead. Off the turn and the stretch drive in the Fountain of Youth, and River Thames, he has the lead by 2 with a 16th to go. Sovereignty begins to get on track, but time is ticking away. River Thames almost there. Sovereignty gonna dive at him late. Here comes Sovereignty! He got him too, did Sovereignty. He went from last to first to win under Junior Alvarado for Godolphin and Bill Mott. The Fountain of Youth from last to first to Sovereignty.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Pete Aiello with the call of the Fountain of Youth and that perfectly timed ride in the Fountain of Youth by Jockey Junior Alvarado aboard Sovereignty, running down River Thames to take that race back on March 1st. Junior was all set to ride his Fountain of Youth winner in the Florida Derby on March 29th. When he was injured a few days before that race, he had to sit that one out. Manny Franco was the pinch hitter in the saddle. Sovereignty ran well, came up just a little bit short behind Tappan Street. Junior will be back aboard next Saturday in the Run for the Roses, and I know he's super pumped up about that, and I'm pumped up to have him with me here on the show. Junior, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mark. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Really well, man. Let's talk about what you went through in those days before the Florida Derby. Man, that had to be just a gut punch for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been working, building up this, having one of the best horses going into the Derby, going into, a great one for the first time with this horse. And, like the last race, Sunday, have that little incident with my horse, have a heart attack, and I went down. Then another horse kind of clipped me in my scapula and it fractured. And when I was in the hospital, I knew something was wrong because I've been through many spills before, and I know I had something that was gonna probably put me away for a couple weeks. And yeah, definitely very upsetting. Then when the doctor told me I have a little fracture in my scapula, that it's gonna require probably 4 weeks to be out. I feel like, the world just collapsed on me. And you start thinking, like, why this has to happen to me? Why at this time? Jesus, I couldn't understand it. But, I always, I guess, from so many injuries, I've been kind of learning how to deal with things like that and trying to see positive things, like in the long run. And just after that, I had to kind of, keep my cool and just try to recover as quick as I can, just to be back on time. And I think I did that pretty well.
The good news is that you are back in time for the Super Bowl, right, for the Kentucky Derby. So that is the silver lining to this whole thing. And you knew all along that Sovereignty was your horse. Did you ever worry that, okay, if he wins the Florida Derby with Manny Franco aboard, maybe you don't get back on him?
I was talking with Bill Mott after, he called me the day that I had the incident, and he called me the day after, when I got released from the hospital, and he said, listen, take your time, and whatever the result is with Sovereignty, you ride him back. If you're back for the Derby, you'll get the mount back, and if you're, ready for the Derby, and whatever happens, all the horses you've been riding, you'll get back. You go back again to ride all your horses. So like he said to me, just don't worry, just do whatever you need to do to recover. All those horses are pretty much yours. You get back, when you get back, you'll get to ride all those horses again. So that gave me a hell of a, big peace of mind. And I think that actually helps me to recover properly in the right way and put in a good effort to keep, getting better and better quicker. And, having the peace of mind, it was definitely a big help through my process of recovering.
Did you have any conversation with Manny before the Florida Derby, maybe going over what you know about Sovereignty as his regular rider that could help him in that particular race?
Yeah, he called me, and I did kind of give him a couple tips. I can, really can't say much. The guy wins more races than me every year. He's a hell of a rider. He's a professional. He knows what to do. But yeah, I just kind of did fill him up a little bit with what I think he likes to do with the horse, what I like to do with the horse normally in the post parade when I'm warming up, and normally when I'm riding it, what I feel like, and when he's ready, he'll probably do this and do that, and just kind of filling him in a little bit with what I normally feel with this horse, and he did a great job. I think that track just never have been a track that will benefit a horse like Sovereignty, and we never had a plan for him to run in any of those prep in Florida because we thought the track was never going to help him, but we had a little hiccups on the run while he was training, so we didn't have any other choices. They ended up running the Fontana View and then the Florida Derby after. So, but that's how it worked out, and I think the horse still ran a very good race. We know that he wasn't pumped up and cranked up for that race. We thought he might be just still good enough to win the race, but I think the best is yet to come for him.
You talk about having the conversation with Manny, telling him about how the horse usually warms up and what you like to do there, and some of the other little key things that might have helped him when he was getting aboard for the first time. Junior, what are some of those things with Sovereignty, some of the key things you like to keep in mind when you get the leg up?
I like to warm it up, and then I get a good feeling right away because he's been the second time I rode him, he was close to the pace. Then the third time, when he broke his maiden in Churchill, he was actually very good that day. He just took a bat, when they opened the gate, he kind of spread his front legs and then did a little hop, and then we were last. And I think I get a good feeling on where he's going to be, like laying close or a little farther back just by the warm up. If it's a little quiet, doesn't mean he's not going to run good. I can feel the aggression that is going to be early in the race from him. And then after that, I never like to rush him. I don't think he liked that. I did that a couple of times with him, kind of like when he breaks, tried to rush him to put him somewhere close, and he kind of speed the beat on me right away, kind of letting me know, like, hey, don't rush me. I don't like that. He started kind of scrumbling his leg underneath me, and that's one thing I kind of learned from him, just to not rush and kind of help him out of there, but don't try to make him do something that he doesn't want to do it. And yeah, I just pretty much just leave him alone. He'll travel very well. He'll get good, take the kick back fine, and once again, I think normally, when he switch lead in the half a mile, he jumps in the bridle and he knows it's like, hey, from here, like, it's time to start going. And after that, you kind of measure it, how far you are, and you start letting it go a little bit later, and then until you turn for home and you unleash his power. He's very good at that.
This will be your sixth appearance in the Kentucky Derby. Your first one came in 2016 with Mo Heyman. You ended up finishing fourth that year. What have you learned over those previous 5 Derby experiences, Junior, that will help you with Sovereignty next Saturday?
To be honest, it's a race who, you have to have the I'll say, the right horse at the right day. They wanted to run at the right time, I guess. It's a tricky race. It's 20 horses that will never run with that many horses in a race. It's the only race in the country that, where you can have 20 horses in the race, and just a lot of things needs to go your way. You have to be very lucky, and once again, you have to have the horse that day and at the right time that he'll give the run that we all expected, but once again, you have to have a good trip at the same time, and everything has to kind of like fall into place in those 2 minutes of racing, and yeah, we'll try to do our best, and hopefully, everything, like I said, everything works out perfectly, and if he gives me the run that I know he's capable of, I think he's gonna be very, very tough and the Derby. I'm very, very excited to tour from home and be coming with him.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, he will finish when you ask him the question, as you talked about earlier. He's going to be running through the stretch. he's a horse that does come from further back. 20-horse field. I know traffic can be an issue. It is up to you to try to guide him through a clean trip like you were just talking about. What's more challenging, Junior, to have a horse that likes to be up on the lead and to try to nurse his speed so he doesn't go too fast, or is it more challenging to have a horse like this where you have to weave through some traffic?
I think either one have their benefit and their cons. I think, if you're on the lead, you kind of easy out of trouble, nobody's on your way, but you can get horses who will challenge you and make you go probably faster than what you than you want. And sometimes, you're doing an okay lead, and all of a sudden by the 3-8 pole, somebody start moving, they start rushing, then you have to start picking it up that early. That is, one con if you're in the lead. But if you're from behind, you can kind of see everything what's happening, make the move right when you think it's right to do it. You don't have to either do it too early or too late. You can kind of perfect, timing that right. But at the same time, if you're kind of in the middle of horses, and then when you start passing horses, there are horses they will try from the outside to keep you boxed in, and some other horses in front of you might start stopping quicker than you think, and then, you have to check there, and those little things, it's easy, but it's not easy, but that's, I guess, that's what we get paid for, and that's where we're professional. We had to figure it out very quick and try to stay out of trouble in a 20-horse field.
What's it like being in the jocks room waiting for the Kentucky Derby on Derby Day? What's it like for a rider?
Well, I was going to speak about myself. I normally I try to, you stay relaxed. I just like to watch the races throughout the day just to make sure, I don't missing anything. Sometimes about the track. Sometimes, those days, normally tracks seems to carry a little more speed. The track gets a little faster, and, just try to be paying attention what's happening through the day in the races. If the inside's good, the outside's good, or, like speed bias a little bit, try to pay attention a little bit of that so I don't get, don't get caught out of guard and do a wrong movement just because I didn't pay attention, the races earlier. But, then just try to stay kind of, as calm as I can, just kind of I will look at the races, few times just in case, but that's it. Just try to stay relaxed, I have to wait for my moment and make the best of it.
Is it easier to stay relaxed now than it was your first time in 2016?
Absolutely. Definitely, I have to say, I get more experience and, being able to ride with those guys for so many years, give you more confidence of, what to do in the race and what to expect, than the first time when you kind of like, it's unknown for you, first time riding with 20 horses and what everybody's doing or how everybody's acting, It's a little different race, It's a race where everybody kind of is a little more in edge, and when they leave the gate, everybody gets a little more aggressive. There is no break whatsoever. It's a little more wild than what it actually looks in TV, to be honest. But having 5 races, already, give me a little bit of idea of what to expect.
Put me in the saddle with you. Well, not literally, figuratively. Sovereignty would not want me in the saddle with you, I promise you that. Walking onto the track, the playing of my old Kentucky home. Tell me about those moments. What's that like?
Oh, no, that's always get me. Like, that gives me, like, the chills in my body. And if anybody else will tell you it doesn't, like, they will probably be lying. It's just, like, just an unbelievable feeling. And I can't even know how to explain that. It's just an unbelievable feeling, and then at the same time, you so appreciated that, so many jockeys in the country, and, I'm the one of the 20 that are able to be in the biggest races in America, in the Derby, and it just make you, like be humble and realize how lucky I am, and yeah, it's just a unique experience. We only experience that once a year. The guys they're able to ride the Derby.
Junior, I think every kid growing up anywhere that wants to be a professional athlete, and that's certainly what jockeys are, they dream of that signature moment, maybe throwing a ball up into the air and hitting a baseball over the fence in the backyard and thinking, okay, that was 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. I just won the World Series. Winning the Kentucky Derby is the same thing for a jockey. So Do you let yourself think about what that moment might be like if Sovereignty crosses the line first next Saturday?
Yeah, I've been picturing it. You have to imagine it so you can make it happen. That's what I always say. You have to see yourself winning it so you can execute the plan and so everything can be executed. But yes, I have seen, especially with this horse, like I being very optimistic and always very positive with every horse that I've been coming into the Derby, but this is the one that I have given me more hope to be in the winner's circle and celebrate. And how that's gonna be, I don't know. I will have to be in the moment, but definitely I'll have been really dreaming about winning this race with this horse, to be honest.
Well, I know your family will be there with you, and Junior, I hope you get the opportunity to celebrate with them after the mile and a quarter journey next Saturday. All the best, my friend. Safe trip every time you get a leg up, and let's go get it done next Saturday.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, buddy. Jockey Junior Alvarado here on HRRN. Yeah, really special horse, really talented horse. I love the fact that Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott told him when he was injured before the Florida Derby, hey, you're my guy. You want to talk about taking pressure off of a jockey, right? Junior said now he could rehab and get back to health properly. He didn't have to try to rush himself back thinking, oh, my goodness, I'm going to lose this mount, and I love this horse so much, and I'm not going to be able to ride him. Kudos to Bill Mott for that. Fantastic stuff. Great conversation with Junior. Really appreciate him taking the time. Coming up next is time for this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds, presented by Spendthrift, and then I'll tell you what's ahead in hour 2. Plenty more Derby conversation coming your way. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hi, this is Kelsey Grammer. When military service members head into battle, none are expected to face the enemy alone, but many return home and become isolated as they struggle with the visible and invisible wounds of war. It can be difficult knowing how to overcome that challenge and rekindle bonds similar to those formed in the military. Wounded Warrior Project supports these injured veterans through their recoveries by connecting them with fellow warriors and their communities. No one should fight this battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Adopt U.S. Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becker. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Bobby Neuman. Join Jude Feld and me for our Derby Countdown shows Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week. We'll be broadcasting live from the backstretch at Churchill Downs. We'll speak with jockeys, trainers, owners, and handicappers, as well as bring you up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Run for the Roses. The Derby Countdown shows presented by Hillendale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen live on Sirius 161, XM 206, or online at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
It was a quiet week for the top 3-year-olds in the land, but there was one important prep race that took place. It was the Federico Tessio Stakes at Laurel last Saturday. The mile and an eighth test brought together an evenly matched field of 10 in search of an automatic berth to this year's Preakness Stakes on May 17th. Bettors settled on Mike Gorham's Pay Billy as the 2-1 favorite, and he did not disappoint. He settled just off the early speed and made a strong move on the rail around the far turn before taking the lead and pulling away to a clear win over Longshot Just a Fair Shake. Speaking of the Preakness Future Wager Pool is now open. Michael McCarthy's Journalism is the slight favorite at 8-1, with Bob Baffert's speedster Cornucopian a surprise second choice at 10-1. The pool closes next Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. By the way, Cornucopian has his Preakness prep tomorrow in an allowance race at Aqueduct. There was some Kentucky Derby news earlier this week. Matticat Road was withdrawn from consideration by his owners, opening a spot for Wayne Catalano's Built. His connections are still weighing their options, though, with the Pat Day Mile as a possible alternative. If he goes there, Safi Joseph's Neo Equos would move into the Derby field. The Kentucky Derby post-position draw takes place tonight. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
He's one of the most accomplished 2-year-old champions ever.
Forte, on to victory here in the Grade 1 hopeful.
He's a TDN rising star, a 5-furlong debut winner in May, a 3-time Grade 1 winning juvenile from 7 furlongs to a mile and a 16th.
And Forte to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
He's a Florida Derby winner, a Fountain of Youth winner, a Jim Dandy winner at 3.
The champion prevails. Forte wins the Florida Derby.
He's the best colt from the Medaglia d'Oro line. He's Forte, standing at Spendthrift Farm.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Burnham Square, overcame a tough start to win the Bluegrass. He'll need a cleaner trip at Churchill. Number 4, American Promise. He crushed him in the Virginia Derby. It's just hard to tell how good that effort was. Number 3, Tappan Street. Great effort when winning the Florida Derby and just keeps getting better and better. Number 2 is Journalism. Overcame a bad trip to prevail in the Santa Anita Derby. He's a logical Kentucky Derby favorite. And number 1 is Sovereignty. Second best to Tappan Street in the Florida Derby, but it didn't look like he loved the track at Gulfstream. Chance for much better in Kentucky. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Olds segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
Edging ever closer to the first Saturday in May, 1 week from today, we will know the answers to all the questions we've been asking for several months, not just here on this show, but on all of the shows we bring your way here on HRN. And speaking of that, you want to be sure to join us beginning on Tuesday morning as we kick off our Derby Countdown shows. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, live from Churchill Downs, and we'll get you ready for the Run for the Roses. Bobby Neuman, Jude Feld will host the shows again, and they'll be joined by so many of the connections pointing for the Oaks and for the Kentucky Derby, including trainers Bob Baffert. You'll hear from him. You'll hear from Brad Cox. You'll hear from so many other connections, too. Make sure you join them 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, the Derby Countdown Show presented by Hillendale, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, live from Churchill. You can listen on different Sirius XM channels. Make a note of that. Sirius 161, XM 206 is where you'll find the Derby Countdown shows. Plus, you can stream them live on our website and check them out via podcast on our site and every podcast platform. So make sure you do that. Quick word for Santa Anita. It is a really big weekend. Well, it's always a big weekend at the Great Race Place. The Hollywood meet is in full swing. Post time is 1 p.m. Pacific. So for those of you here on the East Coast, that's 4 o'clock. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can get the coast-to-coast Pick 5, Santa Anita and Gulfstream sequence with a low 15% takeout. The $2 Pick 6, it's a traditional Pick 6. You have the $3 All-Turf Pick 3, the $3 Late Pick 3, and the $5 Late Double, all with a low 15% takeout. And, by the way, today, a $500 handicapping contest. You can compete for NHC, Preakness, Gold Cup seats, all of that at Santa Anita. You can go to santaanita.com to learn more. How great was Junior this morning, huh? We're going to post that on our website so you can go back and listen. Of course, this entire show available via podcast as it is every week, but you'll get a chance to listen to Junior's conversation. If you missed any of that, you won't want to miss listening again. Hour 2 getting ready to come your way momentarily. Plenty of things to get to in the second hour of the program, including Kevin Kerstein from Churchill Downs. He'll update you on what's been happening at Churchill this morning with all the Oaks and the Derby horses. And I'll tell you more about what's coming up in the second hour and the third hour of the show when I come back after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3. Mike Penna, Baron in the backstretch with you on this Saturday morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Kevin Kerstein coming up 9:20 Eastern, 9:40. I will turn our attention north of the border. We'll go to Woodbine as they get ready to kick off their meet later today. Michael Copeland is the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. He'll join me 9:40 Eastern. 10 o'clock, it is the TwinSpires Triple Play with Joe Kristufek. You won't want to miss that. Joe has 3 races that he will take a look at, all at Churchill Downs later today, or coming up tonight on opening night of their spring meet. 10:20, Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History. 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. Poll question this morning, asking you if post position, considering the fact that post positions will be drawn tonight for the Oaks and for the Derby as part of that opening night program, will post position change your opinion about a horse you like in the Kentucky Derby? And so far, 76% of you have said definitely. That's a little surprising to me. Many of you putting a lot of stock into the post positions here. Post position doesn't matter. 21% of you choosing that one, and then only if it's 17, 3% of you saying if it's post 17, which is the only post that has never produced a Kentucky Derby winner. But 76% seems like a big number. Michael tweets to us and says, I don't want to be in 1 or 2, but that's it. 4 is awesome. Then outside of the 8 is also great. But if my top pick draws 1 or 2, I'll start looking for a solid horse to play elsewhere. You can also email the show if you don't do social media, Mike at horseracingradio.net. Tom in St. Louis says, with the new gate, post position does not matter. Keep in mind, there is no auxiliary starting gate anymore, so things have changed a little bit there. He said post won't matter because of the new gate. Rick in Delaware says the post does have some consequences. The pace and the trip are all critical factors, but the post does have some consequence. Again, you can email the program. Let me know your thoughts. Mike at horseracingradio.net. Don't forget, too, that you'll want to stay tuned to the end of the program for the answer to this week's impossible trivia question. And here's the question for you. What Oscar-winning filmmaker was co-owner of 2003 Kentucky Derby 4th place finisher? That's what I'm talking about. If you think you know, you can tweet to us. You can email us. Challenge yourself. See if you can get the answer to this week's impossible trivia question. I'll reveal the answer coming up at the end of the show, as we do every week, right around 10:55 Eastern Time. If you want an in-depth interview with journalism's trainer Michael McCarthy. You can find it in the new edition of Blood Horse. Plus, you'll see pedigree trends in American Classic races, Donato Lani's staggering success, both as a bloodstock agent and as an owner, and traditions surrounding the 150th Preakness. All of that and much, much more are packed into this week's Blood Horse Magazine May issue. Become a subscriber for as little as $59 or purchase a single issue at bloodhorse.com. Well, I mentioned that Whit Beckman was set to join us. He was going to talk about his horses that worked yesterday, his Oaks and Derby contenders. Unfortunately, Whit is training horses at this very moment. He had a set that he was sending out right at 9 o'clock, so unfortunately he is not able to join us. But this past week, I had a chance to sit down with two-time Derby winner Doug O'Neill. Now, Doug, we're going to play the entire interview for you next Friday on our Trainer Talk show presented by Fasig-Tipton. You'll hear from Doug looking back on those two wins. You'll also hear from Neil Drysdale, the Hall of Famer, talking about his win 25 years ago with Fusaichi Pegasus. Next week is Fusaichi Pegasus Week on the network. We celebrate Fupeg all week long. That's presented by our friends at Keeneland Sales. But in light of Whit not being able to join us, I want to bring you about 10 minutes of that conversation I had with Doug. Doug was fantastic, as was Neil, but Doug was really, really good. And here's what Doug had to say looking back on his two Kentucky Derby wins. When you think about what you've been able to accomplish when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, two Derby victories, pretty remarkable. What comes to mind?
God, the first comes to mind is Paul and Villa Redham. That comes to mind right away because it would have had no chance if it wasn't for them. They own both. I'll have another and Nyquist, and it was just such a amazing journey with both. And obviously the first one was just so crazy because it was, we were so kind of under the radar and, wet behind the ears with the whole process. And to win that was just, I felt like I died and went to horsey heaven.
Can you believe it's been 13 years?
I know. Where's time gone? Time's flying, and it's still, even though we're not going to have one in the race this year, it's still so much fun to be part of and just to watch. So it's just a great race.
Is that difficult, Doug, for any trainer? But I'll ask you because I'm talking to you. Is it difficult to accept sitting on the sidelines when you know what it feels like to win the Kentucky Derby?
I would rather do that than be there with a horse I thought had, no chance. So I guess if you have enough points nowadays to get into the Derby, you feel like you got a chance. So, but, I know with Nyquist, we sure went in thinking we had a huge chance. And with I'll Have Another, we felt like we had a decent chance. So, it's an incredible situation, and the whole build-up is just second to none. And and then you're just every morning you're doing the sign across and hoping your horse stays injury-free, and so it's a lot of emotions for sure going into it.
It's a great point. Even though you're not there participating this year, I know you can shed some light on what trainers are going through in these days leading up to the Derby, where we're going to be 8 days away from the Run for the Roses. What are these days like for most trainers?
I think, I'm still, we're all so similar and we all do so many similar things, but I think the one thing that if you haven't run in a Derby before, you might overthink, you might want to overtrain, or I don't know, or if you want to keep them injury-free, you might want to undertrain. So there's probably a little bit of that going through a lot of people's heads of what to do. But I was able to, just being in Southern California with, so many good horsemen, I kind of had it drilled in my head of just whatever got you here, keep doing that. Don't overdo it or underdo it. And so that was kind of the mindset we took. But a lot of it too, you can only train, you got to have a horse who lets you do what they want to do. So there's a lot goes into it, but bottom line, you just got to have a really, really talented horse mentally and physically, and we had a couple, that's for sure.
People may think that I'll Have Another was your first Derby starter. He wasn't. He was actually your third.
Mm-hmm.
You came to the Derby for the first time 5 years earlier in 2007 with two horses, Great Hunter and Liquidity. Let's start there. Tell me about that first experience.
It's it's nerve-wracking. Yeah, you just so badly want things to go right, and you got, way over 100,000 people there, and it just, the energy is just through the roof, and just your own blood pressure is through the roof because of the excitement that's going on, and the honor it is to be working alongside a horse that's good enough to be there. And again, those are two Paul and Zilla Redham horses as well. So, Paul was just so great at surrounding me with good horses, and so great at, if the horses are doing well, taking chances. And so got tons of experience with the team Purple and White, with Team Redham, and it really helped us as we came in 2012 and had a legitimate chance with I'll Have Another to be able to tap down all the outside noise and just stay focused on the task, and hope Mario and the horse are good enough and get good enough trips to get it done.
There are so many incredible moving moments when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, but one of the most special, in my opinion anyways, and I've never had the chance to do it, but that walkover that you watch all the connections make coming from the barn area to the paddock before the race. Tell me about that walkover. Put me there with you. What was it like in your very first walkover?
I was never a boxer, but I watched a lot of Rocky and boxing matches on TV. But that was what it felt like to me, was coming into a main boxing event, and you're just, the crowd is just right on you, and the roar and the energy is just it's spiritual. I don't know. It's so it makes you want to just shadow box. It makes you want to cry. It makes you want to laugh. It makes you just want to realize how blessed you are at that moment to be alongside a horse that's this good, that is able to compete in this setting. So yeah, it's hard to, I don't think you could find it anywhere else other than maybe a boxing match or something where people are just all over you, or like I guess any other sport in a Game 7 situation. I'm sure they have the same thing where it's like, whoa, where is that energy coming from? And it's just, so many of you are on the same page of just, being part of this amazing moment.
I use this analogy a lot when I talk about situations like this, but when you hear about a quarterback that jumps from college to the NFL and the move is significant, and over time when they get more experience, the game slows down for them and they become more seasoned, more productive. Same thing with a trainer. You were there in 2007, you come back 5 years later with I'll Have Another. Did the game slow down a little bit for you?
100%. It is such a great analogy. And you just, the outside noise gets way, way less. And, you just stay, you try to enjoy every moment of it and not get caught up in the little things that go wrong, which inevitably in life, that's what happens. And you forget this or you forget that or whatever. You just take a deep breath and go borrow it from somebody or whatever, and don't freak out. So yeah, it definitely slows down, and horses, I'm convinced, are mirrors of us. And as you slow down and are confident and kind of in control, I truly believe horses feel that, and they're going to reflect what we give to them. So we try to give them, good atmosphere and being grateful and prepared and competitive. And if you get a good horse, you can see a lot of that come back.
What lesson or lessons did you learn from that first experience that helped you with I'll Have Another when you came back there for the second time?
I think the fact that to stay the course and train just like you did going into it, the paddock can be a little bit overwhelming. To me, my experience is like, don't overschool, don't overdo it, because you'll tip them over the edge with anxiety, or it's almost like you're teasing them sometimes when you overschool them. So I think, just trying to keep it like a normal race, even though we all know it's not, but just try not to overdo it and just act like it's an allowance race, fifth race on the card at wherever your home track is, and everything will work itself out.
We heard Mark Johnson with the call of that race as we were getting ready to begin our conversation here, and Bodemeister was the favorite that year. I'll Have Another had to run him down through the stretch, and Bodemeister had opened up a big lead in mid-stretch under Mike Smith. Looked like he was going to get home, but I'll Have Another would have none of that. What was it like watching that stretch run?
It was just unbelievable, because I had imagined it multiple times leading up to it, of something like that happening, but the reality of it happening was just crazy. And the one thing too, leaving the paddock, the family, we all had seats up in the third floor or something, and it was so crazy that I was like, there's no possible way I'm going to get up there and get back down to the track after the race. So I watched it along the rail right in front of the winter circle, and with all the new structures up and everything, I couldn't really see a whole lot, but I could kind of hear, and I can kind of see a little bit. And so, I would have looked like a complete moron if it wasn't us making that move around the turn, because I thought I picked him up, and I thought that was him, and thank God it was. But yeah, he was flying around there the whole week. He was galloping like a freight train, and he had great energy that week, and it worked out that day.
Yeah, it did work out for Doug O'Neill. Again, you're going to hear that entire conversation. There was much, much more that we got into over the course of about 30 minutes or so. You'll hear the entire conversation next Friday, Oaks Day, on our Trainer Talk show presented by Fasig-Tipton. You can listen to it live from 5 to 6 Eastern right here on these same SiriusXM channels, or catch the podcast afterwards. If you happen to miss it, you can do that on our website and on every podcast platform. All right, coming up next, you're going to hear from Kevin Kerstein. We're going to take you live to Churchill Downs. He'll give you an update on everything that has happened throughout the morning and any late-breaking news. He'll have those updates coming up in just a minute. That will be our Kentucky-bred conversation, which gives me another opportunity to remind you that a record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program for racing in 2024. $20 million. KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds, winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Kentucky's average purse per race of $104,740 and average field size of 8.9 at its 5 racetracks continues to outpace all other leading racing jurisdictions. Kentucky breds are the world's best racehorses. That's evident at the recently concluded Turfway Park. You had Kentucky breds accounting for 23 or 24 stakes during the stand. How about this? This year, Kentucky breds once again dominate the leaderboard for the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. Kentucky breds comprise 19 of 20 Derby contenders, topped by Burnham Square, winner of the Grade 1 Bluegrass, and Arkansas Derby winner Sandman. You have Santa Anita Derby winner San Felipe Stakes, Journalism, who's going to be the favorite. He is a Kentucky bred, and Kentucky breds make up 11 of 14 of the leading Oaks contenders, led by Quiet Side, La Cara, and Good Cheer. Kentucky breds, breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com. I'm back with this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation with Kevin Kerstein, live from Churchill, right after this on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The spring meet at Churchill Downs is off and running with live racing Wednesday through Sunday now through June 29th. With 50 stakes on tap worth a record of over $26 million and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, you won't want to miss the spring meet at Churchill Downs. And don't forget, racing doesn't stop after the Kentucky Derby with 6 stakes on Stephen Foster Preview Day on May 31st and the Grade 1 $1 million Stephen Foster on June 28th. For post times and full spring meet schedule, visit churchilldowns.com.
It all comes down to this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
The moment that defines the year, when the world's most influential buyers gather, and every decision, every bid, every opportunity shapes the future. At a marketplace that brings the thoroughbred world together, and where futures are forged, because every moment matters. At the World's Yearling Sale, Keeneland, September.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're coming to the quarter pole, and Citizen Bull's been in front throughout. Baeza up alongside the challenge, and now Journalism is revving up a clear-cut third. They're at the top of the stretch in the Santa Anita Derby, and here's Baeza. Baeza forges past Citizen Bull, and Journalism is kicking into high gear. Journalism and Baeza in a Santa Anita Derby showdown. It is Journalism just in front of Baeza. Write this down. Journalism is the best in the West as he wins the Santa Anita Derby. Baeza punched his ticket to Louisville. It was a long way back to Westwood and Citizen Bull.
Frank Miramati with the call of that Santa Anita Derby victory by Kentucky Derby favorite Journalism. He'll be entered tonight along with the other horses pointing for the Run for the Roses. The Kentucky Oaks horses also entered on opening night of the Churchill meet, which leads me perfectly into this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation presented by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeder Incentive Funds, which issued a record $20 million in KTBIF awards to breeders of Kentucky bred horses this year. Fantastic stuff. Kevin Kerstein is the publicity guy for Kentucky Derby, for Churchill, for Ellis, and for Turfway, so nobody better to have a Kentucky bred conversation than Kevin. Kevin, appreciate the visit, my man.
Hey, Mike, good morning. Happy Derby.
Yeah, happy Derby to you. Happy opening day of the spring meet. Let's start by talking about what we're going to see tonight, and then you can tell me what happened on the racetrack this morning.
Yeah, tonight's a really exciting night. Kicks off our 43-day spring meet here at Churchill Downs, and I think all eyes will be on Churchill, specifically in the middle of the portion of tonight's card between races 5 and 6 at 7:05 Eastern Time, when the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks post positions are drawn between races. So lots of tension from several connections on the backside this morning, and some waiting to see if they'll get into the race and which posts they will draw. Good race tonight, good card tonight. 10 races kicks off at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and then we go Derby week to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and, of course, into Oaks and Derby on Friday and Saturday. It's a great week here at Churchill Downs, and it'll be a great spring meet that kicks off tonight.
We have been reposting many of the videos that you have put out there, not just today, but throughout the week. And if folks want to get the latest on what's happening at Churchill, they can follow you on X. That's Horse Racing KK. The way to get in touch with you, of course, they can do that by following TwinSpires as well, the sponsor of this particular show. But, Kevin, let's talk about what we saw this morning, which horses were on the track, which horses may have altered plans because of the rain that we had in the area coming into this morning.
Yeah, there was all sorts of juggling going on this morning from basically everyone on the backside, because when the track lights came on this morning, the track was sealed and still had a couple of puddles on it after some rain in the Louisville area last night and into this morning. So just sort of waiting to see how this track would dry out, and it dried out very quickly, and so that even made trainers change their plans again. So originally scheduled to work this morning was Journalism, and he was, once Michael McCarthy saw that sealed track, they're like, oh, no, we'll probably wait until Sunday. And then around 7 o'clock, he was like, oh, they're harrowing the track, and so he got the notification about that. And they were actually toying with working him this morning, ended up just galloping, so he'll work tomorrow morning. But we saw Burnham Square complete his final Kentucky Derby move. We just saw Tapan Street and Final Gambit from the Brad Cox barn. They altered their plans, originally scheduled to work at 7:15. they ended up working right around 9 o'clock, and both of those horses looked really solid in their final moves as well. Burnham Square did as well, too. Render Judgment finished his final work for the Kentucky Derby as Kenny McPeak was in, was out, was in. So he is now going to be entered as a Kentucky Derby also eligible. And he said Julian Leperoux, who worked the horse this morning, would have the mount on Render Judgment. A couple of Oaks fillies worked this morning. Ballerino, Doro, Tenma, Fondly just worked as well. So lots going on here. Anna's Promise as well is one of the fillies that worked. So there was a lot going on. I had all those stretch run videos and specific splits on my X account like you mentioned. And, it's the name of the game, Mike, this time of the year. Trainers are, changing plans by the minute with the weather. But knock on wood, maybe after the next couple of days we can get to Derby Day when it can be sunny and 70.
Man, you never want to have to alter any plans, any schedules when you get to this point. We're 7 days away from the Run for the Roses, and here we are with the favorite journalism, and because of the weather conditions, you're wondering, what do I do? Do I send him out there? Do I not send him out there? You're kind of on the fence, and then you ultimately stick to your plan and say, okay, we're just going to wait and bring him in tomorrow and let him work tomorrow. But, boy, that's got to be nerve-wracking for his connections.
You could tell there's just a little bit more extra tension, just with everyone, because today is their final works for almost all of these contenders before the biggest race of their career, and so it's just having that tension, knowing that it's the final preparation today. Then fast forward 10 hours from now, and it's the Kentucky Derby post position draw. That's some more tension, and then just trying to see how these horses came out of their breeze this morning, and if they have to alter their plans, go to plans B or C, it just changes that flow a little bit. But luckily, there are some pros there on the backstretch, and especially from that Michael McCarthy barn. He's a very astute member of the horse racing game, and so he came up under great tutelage with Todd Pletcher and sort of knows the deal and how to alter plans. So he seems all right, but of course they would probably want to go today if they could have, just to stick with that plan. But they're all right going tomorrow.
This is also the time of year where we start to talk about a buzz horse or two for the Kentucky Derby. Horses that maybe were under the radar arrive at Churchill Downs and start to blossom. Are you seeing any of those horses come, or are there any of those that come to mind?
I think there's two that are probably going to be bet a lot more than they were going to be probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, probably 4 weeks ago. And that's two grays, and Sandman and Final Gambit. And Sandman, just the striking look to him, a striking gray son of Tappet, did everything right in the mornings here, and it was impressive in the Arkansas Derby. And so you just see all that attention, plus you add the Metallica angle for some people. And you've got to remember it's the Derby, so you're going to have a lot of money in these pools that aren't necessarily the, astute horse players, as we all know. So you might get some of that money because of his name and Sandman and the Metallica reference. And then Final Gambit, too. He's turned in some pretty solid works here in the mornings. The big question mark is, will he handle the dirt surface? As he's been running on the turf and the all-weather at Turfway. So will he be able to handle this dirt surface here? He's certainly shown it in the mornings, and has been impressive as well. So I think both of those horses might get a little bit bet than what they originally were probably meant to be.
Kevin Kerstein with me for this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation. Kevin, this meet goes beyond the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, there's only one Derby, and that's the signature event. The Oaks right there with it the day before. But, there are so many other graded stakes that we're going to see leading up to those races, and so much money that is going to be given away even beyond the Derby throughout the rest of the meet. And that's been the case now for the past few years. Every year it just seems like the program, especially you as a publicity guy for the Derby, for Churchill, for Ellis, for Turfway, you've got plenty of things to talk about and plenty of things to promote when it comes to the incentives and the money that's being given away in Kentucky now.
Yeah, it's really made my job easy because Kentucky is the place to be. And it's just, this is where all of the top caliber horses are going. I mean, just think of this week, not only from the Derby and the Oaks, but you have 7 grade ones now across the 2 days of racing on Oaks and Derby Day. And you're having horses like Torpedo Anna and Fierceness and Locked, and getting some monsters that are coming in here. And then, the stake schedule as we've seen in most of the racing industry, trainers are wanting to space the races out a little bit more from these horses. And you go 8 weeks to the Stephen Foster, where, if all goes well in the Ali Sheba, Kenny McPeak, in the La Troyenne for Torpedo Anna, Kenny McPeak has said that she would go in the Grade 1 Stephen Foster against males. You already have First Mission aiming towards that race. You have Sierra Leone. Plus, who knows what Fierceness or Locke could do in the Ali Sheba. So it really extends beyond Kentucky Derby week here at Churchill Downs, and it's just really getting things started with a bang here next week.
Obviously the Ali Sheba is always a great race, but what are some of your personal favorite undercard races on Oaks and Derby Day?
I feel like the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic is always one that always piques my interest. Just, I think, maybe the adrenaline's going very high with the Kentucky Derby being in the next race, but I always enjoy that race. The Derby City Distaff, in some years, it can be just really thrilling, and I think this year could be another one. They're drawing for that in the racing office right now, and it looks to be a very competitive field for those fillies and mares going for that Grade 1. So I think it's between those two races are the ones I'm looking forward to the most. And the biggest difficulty I have this week, Mike, is making sure I manage my bankroll because I don't want to go busted after opening night tonight.
Yeah, it's a great point. How do you approach betting on the Kentucky Derby? What's your favorite way to play it, Kevin?
It's this year I think is different than some other years because I think it's pretty top heavy in both the Oaks and the Derby. And the 2-day $1 pick six is my wife's favorite bet to play. If you're getting my little hunch there, she loves to sort of play that 2-day wager. And this year, I think you might be able to use good cheer and journalism as sort of the horses that you could key on in that bet and try to find some prices in those other races that we'll use in that sequence. You also just have so many options. So if you like the favorite in like journalism in the Derby, it's not to say you can't play an Oaks Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic Derby Pick 3, which will start on Friday, a 50-cent based bet. And you can try to maybe get some prices in the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic. Or if you think the Derby is wide open and you like good cheer in the Oaks, there's just some options there with the betting menu that we'll have this weekend.
What do you think the final odds are going to be on journalism?
I think he's going to be 5-2. That's my guess. I haven't talked to Mike Battaglia yet. I'll give him a call probably here in an hour or so just to sort of see what his mindset is like. But I think he's probably 5-2-ish. And I do think that Sandman's, there's enough buzz on him that he goes off as a second choice. Maybe if Baeza does not make the field. If Baeza makes the field, there's enough eyeballs on him that he could take a ton of attention and be in that conversation for the second choice.
How many questions have you had to answer about that tweak to the point system this year and the fact that if Baeza had gotten full points for that second-place finish in the Santa Anita Derby, he would already be in? How many questions have you had to answer regarding that topic?
About the same amount of energy drinks that I've had this week to stay awake, which is a lot. way too many, Mike. But he's here on track at Churchill. Baeza is. He looked good galloping this morning. We'll just have to see if there's any racing luck. Can make it in the field. When Rich Strike drew in the field at the very last second, literally the last second, anything can happen in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it's so true. Journalism is going to try to end a streak of 6 consecutive losing favorites in the Kentucky Derby. That came on the heels of 6 consecutive winning favorites. So maybe this pattern holds true when we get back to a winning favorite this year.
It really could, and he journalism just looks the part. He looks like physically he's just ready to run a monster race, and we'll have to see. I think the post position draw is pretty key for him tonight because if he draws the inside portion of this starting gate, I think that's going to change my mindset a little bit to how I sort of map out my wagers, because when we saw him in the Santa Anita Derby get in trouble in just a 5-horse field being on the inside, yes, his class stood out and was able to get up over Baeza, but it's a whole different animal in the Kentucky Derby if he draws that inside portion with, 15-plus horses to his outside.
That's a great point. I'm asking our listeners this morning as our poll question, will post position change your opinion about a horse you like in the Derby? And so far, 78% of HRRN Nation has said, yeah, it definitely will. Only 18% saying post does not matter. It sounds like you're kind of in that camp too. Depending on where a horse like Journalism draws, you might change your opinion just a little bit.
I think so. And there's the early pace scenario in this Derby seems just so questionable because you have horses coming out of the Bob Baffert barn that both want to go the same direction in Citizen Bull and Rodriguez. They both want to go to the front, so who draws inside of outside of either of those two would make a difference going that quarter of a mile run into the first turn. You have a horse like American Promise who's going to want to go to the lead. Where does he end up in starting gate? Admire Daytona likes to show pace. Where does he end up in the inside or outside of other speeds? So I think it's a big question mark this year where some of these key horses that will be in that first flight of horses where they draw in the start gate.
Kevin Kerstein here on HRRN, this Kentucky bred conversation. Plenty of Kentucky breds in this year's Kentucky Derby, really dominant. Same thing with the Kentucky Oaks. I told you about that in the previous segment. Kevin, listen, I appreciate the conversation. As always, you are on top of it. We'll encourage people to continue to follow you on social media and to follow all of the Churchill Downs news that's coming out over the next 7 days or so, because there is going to be a lot of movement in the way that things develop over the next week.
It's going to be a great week. We're really looking forward to having you guys back here. I just saw your 10 on the backstretch. It looks ready to go, and excited for all of the coverage you're going to offer over the next 7 days.
Can't wait, my man. I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you next week.
All right, Mike. Thanks.
All right, yeah, of course, our coverage, our Derby Countdown shows beginning Tuesday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. You can join Bobby Neuman and the Pontiff of the Pick 4 as they visit with so many of the top players associated with the Oaks and Derby horses. The Derby Countdown presented by our friends at Hillendale at Alapa. And you can listen live 8 to 10 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, Sirius 161, XM 206. Those are different channels than you're listening to right now. And, of course, if you miss it, you can check out the podcast and live stream on our website, horseracingradio.net. That is your Kentucky bred conversation for this Saturday morning. First implemented in 2005, the KTBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races worldwide. In 2024, Kentucky breds won 72% of greatest stakes races in the U.S., including all 3 legs of the Triple Crown with 3 different horses, and captured 10 Eclipse Awards led by Horse of the Year and champion 3-year-old filly Torpedo Anna. And horses, don't forget, they shined in Dubai as well, with Hit Show topping a 1-2 Kentucky bred finish in the Dubai World Cup, Dark Saffron taking the Golden Shaheen, and Raging Torrent winning the Godolphin Mile. And we do not plan on slowing down. Kentucky breds, breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com. Coming up next, I welcome Michael Copeland, who is the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. We'll talk about their opening day, their opening weekend, and look ahead to the rest of the meet. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
First Mission, still looking for room. He's going to come through between horses now. Down the lane, Banishing's in front. First Mission's got dead aim on him, though. Skippy Longstocking, he's beaten on the rail third. Here comes First Mission on the inside of Banishing to snatch the lead away. And it's First Mission drawing clear, edging away for an Oaklawn Handicap win. Flavian Pratt and First Mission win the Oaklawn Handicap.
That's future Darley Stallion First Mission, himself a son of Darley Stallion Street Sense, with an impressive win in the Grade 2 Oaklawn Handicap, posting a 109 buyer. No other horse in the nation can top that buyer number beyond 7 furlongs this year. That victory makes First Mission your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Learn more about all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, Presented by TwinSpires.
My Boy Prince has said, let's go, and turns in the King's Plate, 2.5 in front. Chased home by Caitlin, her greatness down the outside. Pierre back in third, and here comes the filly. Caitlin, her greatness, coming after My Boy Prince and running up to share the lead. And down the outside is Midnight Mascot is flying home. Caitlin, her greatness, has reached the lead, and she's as great as they come. Caitlin, her greatness, wins the King's Plate. A half a length to My Boy Prince and Midnight Mascot. Fourth was Pierre, and Jokestar was fifth.
That's Robert Geller with the call of last year's King's Plate, won by Caitlin, her greatness, the filly named in honor of basketball star Caitlin Clark, and she rolled to victory that day. The 166th King's Plate is set for August 16th of this year. 128 days of racing begins today, north of the border at Woodbine, and it is one of the great racing venues that you're going to find in our sport. Always a lot of fun to visit. We're going to make another stop up there for the King's Plate this year in mid-August, and really looking forward to that trip. There are 9 races slated for today. First post is 1:05 Eastern. You have the Star Shoot Stakes, which is race number 8, which is always a really fun race. That race at 6 furlongs on the all-weather surface. So post time for the Star Shoot, 4:41 Eastern time. And hoping to be joined momentarily by Michael Copeland, who is the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. We are currently efforting him and hope to have him with you shortly. It was a little touch and go, at least for those of us on the outside looking in to the situation with Woodbine Entertainment and the Ontario HBPA. They were going back and forth negotiating. The HBPA wanted higher purses and more racing dates. Woodbine was kind of on the other side of the fence saying, okay, let's talk about this. And on March 26th, they reached an agreement in which purses would be increased and we would have 128 days of racing. I'm going to talk to Michael about what that time was like. Was it as touch and go as those of us on the outside looking in thought it might be? But as so often happens in our sport and in other sports, we find a way to make things happen. We find common ground, and that's what happened there. So looking forward to visiting with Michael here in just a few minutes. Really good stuff from Kevin. I told you he's on top of things, right? Talking about those workouts and who we saw on the racetrack this morning. A couple of horses that he said may now take more money than originally anticipated when the wagering opens because of the way that they're looking, because of the way that they're training at Churchill Downs. Sandman, and as he cited, the angle with Metallica, the Hall of Fame rock band, who, by the way, this is really cool. I'm going to get into this with Dale and Tim coming up on I Ask They Answer, but Metallica sent Metallica T-shirts to the entire Mark Casse barn this week. There's a great picture out there on social media of the team standing with Sandman, all of them wearing their Metallica T-shirts. So Metallica's on board. Maybe you should be too. And I'm going to ask Dale and Tim if Sandman, and really all the Derby horses, you couldn't just do it for one, but how cool would it be if there was walk-up music for horses before these big graded stakes races? I think that would be really cool. I've said it before on the show. I think we should look into that. Going to have to figure out how we make it all come together logistically. But I know it's tough on a day like the Kentucky Derby when there's so much going on. But can you imagine Sandman coming into the paddock, that amphitheater-style paddock at Churchill Downs, which is newly remodeled, and he comes walking into the playing of Enter Sandman? And if you gave each horse walk-up music, you could do that for all of them. You could do that for all 20, but again, logistically, it's probably a little bit of a nightmare. But I'm going to ask Dale and Tim their thoughts if they like that idea. If they like that idea for other graded stakes races, not the Kentucky Derby, not the Kentucky Oaks. Maybe just grade ones. Maybe you just do it for grade ones. But maybe as the horses come onto the racetrack, right? Like a baseball player when they come up to the plate. There's a short 10, 15-second song that plays. It's their walk-up music. You do the same thing for the horses as they're being introduced in the post parade. I don't know, thinking out of the box of some different things that we could do to kind of make horse racing even more appealing to a younger audience. But I think that could be kind of neat. So Sandman was one horse that Kevin talked about as a horse that might take more money. And Final Gambit, winner of the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway, a horse that, by all reports, has looked fantastic training on the main track there at Churchill. You might look at him as an outsider and an underdog because of the fact that he won on the synthetic, that Jeff Ruby Stakes win, although it was ultra impressive, it was on the synthetic. But we know horses can run big races when they go from synthetic to dirt. It happens. Will it happen next Saturday on our sport's biggest stage? He's in the hands of Brad Cox. So he has that in his corner. And if Brad likes the way he's training, and Kevin likes the way he's training, and I've read from other reporters that they also like the way he's training, you got to think he's a horse that you have to leave in on your tickets somewhere. Whether you like him to win the race or not, you think Final Gambit probably has to be on there. But you might not get the price you were hoping to get on him considering the buzz that's taking place. Kevin also mentioned the fact that rendered judgment for Ken McPeak, who was, his connections were on the fence, whether they were going to run him, not run him. He's on the outside looking in right now. He will enter tonight. They have decided to put him into the Derby field, but he'll be one of the horses on the also eligible list, along with Baeza. I'm sure the connections of Baeza were hoping that rendered judgment and his connections would say, okay, we're going to go a different direction. But they have decided to give him a shot. So he'll be ahead. So when the post positions are drawn tonight at Churchill, the body of the field, the 20 horses will be entered. If somebody defects after those are drawn, just like any other race, the also eligibles can draw in. But it will be rendered judgment, the first to get in, and then Baeza would be the second AE. And as you heard Kevin say, he's there. He's at Churchill Downs, so he's ready to go whenever he gets the word. Fantastic night of racing coming up at Churchill Downs tonight. Quick reminder, I told you about our Derby Countdown shows taking place next week. I told you about Trainer Talk next Friday with Neil Drysdale and Doug O'Neill. And, of course, next week, Fusaichi Pegasus Week here on the network, presented by Keeneland Sales. We will celebrate the 2000 Kentucky Derby winner all week long. He sold in 1998 at the Keeneland July sale for $4 million. He was always meant to be a good one, and he certainly turned out to be. So we'll celebrate his accomplishments all next week on all of our programs here. Quick update on the poll question. I'm asking you this morning to let me know if indeed that post position is going to change your opinion of a horse that you like in the Kentucky Derby. And I'm wondering, too, how much will you alter your wagering on that horse if you really like him, but the horse draws post 17, the only horse never to produce a Kentucky Derby winner in 150 years? Will you change the way that you're going to bet on that horse, or do you throw him out altogether? Which post position will change your opinion? So definitely 78% of you say, yeah, the post position matters. 78% say you will definitely change your opinion about a horse based on what post he draws tonight. 19% post doesn't matter. And then only if it's post 17 would you make a change, and only 3% of you going that direction here this morning. You can continue to vote on X and Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and let me know your thoughts. Well, again, waiting on Michael Copeland. He's the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment. Hopefully we get a chance to catch up with him. It's a very, very busy day for the folks at Woodbine as they kick off their 2025 meet later today. So I'll look forward to that visit coming up. The answer to our impossible trivia question comes your way at 10:55 Eastern. Hour 3 loaded with more content. 10 o'clock, just about 15 minutes away from the TwinSpires Triple Play with Joe Kristufek. He'll give you 3 races at Churchill to watch later tonight. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and at 10:30 I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. At the top of the show, if you're just joining me and you missed it, I congratulated our colleague, my dear friend Jeff Bloom, on his Sovereign Award. The Sovereign Awards took place this past week in Canada, the equivalent of our Eclipse Awards here in the States. And Jeff, co-owner, along with True North Stable, of the champion 3-year-old male in Canada, Dresden Rowe, trained by Lauren Richards. So congratulations to him and to all the Sovereign Award winners. I also want to congratulate Smarty Jones, who gets into the Hall of Fame this year. He was the only member of the contemporary candidates that will have a plaque in Saratoga this year. And that, to me, is a bit mind-boggling. I did not expect just one candidate to get in from this year's list. I certainly thought Groupie Doll was a first-ballot Hall of Famer. A two-time champion female sprinter, won the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint 2 consecutive years, among other big-time greatest stakes that she won. I don't know how she is not a first-ballot Hall of Famer. That to me makes no sense. I voted for her. I also don't understand Rags to Riches not getting in to the Hall of Fame. Yes, you can say, well, she had a very abbreviated career. Well, so did Smarty Jones. And, yeah, he was undefeated, and I know he won the Derby and the Preakness. And, listen, Smarty Jones deserves to be in. I voted for him, too. But I think Rags to Riches also deserves to be in. She wins the Belmont Stakes, beating Curlin, first filly to do it in, 100 and something years. You deserve to be in. And on the trainer side, I can't figure out why voters don't want to put Doug O'Neill in the Hall of Fame. And you can say, okay, yeah, he had some medication violations. He had those issues. All of these types of things you want to look at, but you better look at other members of the Hall of Fame, too, that are in there currently, if you want to use that as your criteria. 2,990 wins for Doug O'Neill. 2 Kentucky Derbies. You heard him talk about those victories earlier in the program. 2 Kentucky Derbies, 1 Preakness, 5 Breeders' Cup wins. What more do you have to do? This is the second year that Doug's been on the ballot. And to me, you want to talk about the 2 biggest snubs, Groupie Doll, Doug O'Neill. Hands down, the 2 biggest snubs of this year's Hall of Fame class. I'll talk more about that later in the program. There's some other people that I feel are also deserving of being in there. I'll make my case for them later in the show as well. And I'm going to bring that up with Dale and Tim. We won't have time to get fully into that topic on I Asked, They Answered today. We'll do more of that down the road. But there are so many other topics that I want to talk to them about here this morning. Many have been submitted by you. And if you want to hear Dale and Tim talk about a topic, debate a topic, you know what to do. You can just send them to me, Mike@horseracingradio.net, or post them on our social media pages, and we will ask Dale and Tim your questions on future editions of I Ask, They Answer, which you catch every single week here on the show, the final segment at 10:30 Eastern. One question that I find intriguing, and it comes from Rick in Sacramento, and you'll hear this conversation coming up in just a little bit. Rick's been watching all the workout videos. I talked about Kevin Kerstein posting those on his social media. He's been watching all of those from Churchill Downs, and he wants to know about team works, horses working in company. We see that quite often. He wants to know what the intention is with those types of workouts, and how does a trainer go about selecting the matchups, the horses that he or she wants to work together. And then he takes it one step further, and Rick asks, how does a trainer keep the horse that loses a workout in company, a team workout, from getting discouraged? And I think that's a really interesting question. I'm looking forward to hearing Dale's thoughts on that. I'm going to ask Tim if he puts any more stock into a team, a in-company workout than he would a horse that works individually and works really well. When it comes to handicapping, do you put any more stock into that? I'll get a chance to talk to him, to Dale and Tim, about that coming up in the final segment of today's show. Okay, apparently Michael has had other obligations here this morning. Obviously, very, very busy day, as I mentioned. We'll try to catch up with him in the next week or two as we continue on with this Woodbine meet. Again, 128 racing days. Kicks off this afternoon, 1:05 p.m. Eastern, first post. The 166th Kings Plate, one of the highlights, coming up on August 16th. When I come back, I'll take a look at a few dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. I'll tell you about a great place to eat if you're going to be in Lexington during this Derby season. And I'll get you ready for hour number 3. That's all ahead on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Did you know? VA home loans are a key to home ownership for those who served.
I would tell anybody who is interested in getting a VA loan to just do it.
For me, the best thing about the VA loan was the simplicity of it. I was expecting, government paperwork, it was going to go on forever, and it just wasn't.
Since the down payment for a VA loan is minimal, we were able to purchase this home and then use the money that we were going to use as a down to actually fix up the home.
And the only way we could do that was because the nest egg that we had saved for the down payment, we didn't have to use because we went the VA route.
This is a wonderful benefit that veterans can take advantage of.
In the military, we make a lot of sacrifices. We're away from our family a lot. And with the VA loan, it's a way that it makes it easier for us to get a home.
To learn more about VA home loans, visit va.gov/home loans.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
HRRN is proud to bring you the Derby Countdown. Bobby Neuman and Jude Feld will broadcast live from trackside and bring you interviews with trainers, jockeys, owners, and other racing insiders. Plus, keep you informed with up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Kentucky Derby. The Derby Countdown, presented by Hill & Dale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday morning during Derby Week at Churchill Downs. Go to horseracingradio.net for more information or to listen live. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Joe in Wisconsin emails the show and says, Mike, why do you do this to yourself? I can't wait to hear Dale's response to walk-up music. That said, as a fan, I love it. As an owner, no way. Yeah, I still think it'd be pretty fun. And I can't wait to hear Dale's response either. And Timmy, by the way, during I Ask They Answer coming your way, 10:30 Eastern. If you're going to be in Lexington this Derby season, there was only one place to eat. I've told you this throughout the entire Keeneland meet. Make your reservations now for Tony's of Lexington. If you want an incredible steak, they tell me their sea bass is pretty good too, although I don't eat fish, so I don't know. But I can tell you, their steak is fantastic. Don't forget to ask for bourbon whipped sweet potatoes. How good do those sound? They're like candy. Man, they're so good. But you can do that at Tony's of Lexington. Go see them. Make your reservations now. They are on Main Street, right behind Rupp Arena. Tell them I sent you in, and they will take wonderful care of you. They'll do it even if you don't mention my name. But enjoy a fantastic meal and a great atmosphere at Tony's of Lexington. All right, time to take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this particular weekend, and some significant ones. Today, April 26th, 1853, the anniversary of England's first Triple Crown winner, West Australia, winning the 2000 Guineas. That's the first of 3 races that comprise England's Triple Crown. April 26th, 1916, today, where we also get to say happy birthday to the first Triple Crown winner here in the States. Sir Barton was foaled at Hamburg Place in Lexington. April 27th, 1973 was the day, tomorrow, the anniversary of Secretariat at Churchill Downs, working 6 furlongs in 1:12 3/5 in preparation for the May 5th Kentucky Derby. We know what happened after that workout. And April 27th, 1999, tomorrow is the anniversary of the Hall of Famer D. Wayne Lucas being elected to that National Thoroughbred Racing Hall of Fame. Special day for him. Can he win his 5th Kentucky Derby coming up next Saturday? What a moment that would be. Can you imagine? He's pretty good at pulling off these upsets. We'll see if he can find one more. The 89-year-old Lucas, just so good. And one more for you. Monday, April 28th, 2001. That is the anniversary that jockey Chris McCarron became the 7th American jockey to win 7,000 races, guiding Spineless Jellyfish to a neck victory in the Khaled Stakes at Hollywood Park. McCarron joined Lafitte Pincay Jr., Bill Shoemaker, Pat Day, David Gall, Russell Bays, and Angel Cordero Jr. in the 7,000 Club on that day, April 28th, 2001. All right, 2 hours down, 1 to go. Don't forget, if you missed any portion of the show, you can check out the podcast after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern on our website and on every podcast platform. But Hour 3 loaded with more special content. If your local station is leaving at this time, continue listening to the third hour of the show on Sirius XM satellite radio and streaming at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 is straight ahead right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Lady Kate trying to see it out, but Monomoy Girl is bearing down, and here she comes. Monomoy Girl takes charge at the 8th pole, opens up a length and a half. Lady Kate is battling on, but Lady Kate is back into second, and Monomoy Girl does it again. Monomoy Girl just keeps on winning. There's 1 furlong to go. Maxfield fully extended on the front end. Visitant is running hard, but is still second. Roadster trying to hang on to third. Chest Chief late on the scene, but nobody catches Maxfield, who glides under the wire, the 3-length winner.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
As they arrive at the 8th pole, Dream Shake on the outside. On the inside, Jackie's Warrior just keeps on battling. Defended is third. Jackie's Warrior fighting off the challenge of Dream Shake. These two, nose to nose, coming down to the wire. Here's the finish. Jackie's Warrior would not be denied in the Pat Day Mile. Seek Again is coming through at the rail. It's Wise Dan in front. Seek Again on the inside. Sticking with him. Wise Dan. Seek Again. The two of them come down to the line together. And it's Wise Dan. He just doesn't know how to get beat.
Now here's Mike Penna.
How about that montage? Played it for you to open the show at 8 a.m. Eastern and playing it for you again here to kick off hour number 3. All kinds of great racing action coming up over the course of the next week beneath the TwinSpires. And it is not only about the Oaks and the Derby. You just heard some great calls of some of the undercard stakes races that we're going to see over the course of those 2 days. It is going to be incredible. And it all begins tonight. Derby week actually kicking off tonight at Churchill. It is opening night of the spring meet. First post, 5 p.m. Eastern. It is a 10-race program later tonight. And tonight is also very special because it features the post-position draw for the Oaks and the Derby. They're going to do that live at Churchill later tonight, so make sure you're there. Do not miss it. I know Joe Kristufek is going to be there, and he is here with the TwinSpires Triple Play momentarily to begin the third hour of the show. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, coming up at 10:20, and at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin, tackling some of the hottest topics in the sport today. And as you can imagine, plenty of Derby-related topics coming their way in the final segment of the show. If you missed any portion of the first 2 hours, head back to our website, horseracingradio.net, to check out the podcast. You can do that, too, on every podcast platform. And you won't want to miss
what we talked about in the first 2 hours, because I had a chance to update you on what's happened this morning on the racetrack at Churchill with the Oaks and Derby horses that were on the track. And you heard from Jockey Junior Alvarado. Fantastic insight into what a jockey goes through when he potentially loses his Derby mount, then regains his Derby mount, and then what he goes through on Derby day. It's incredible. You can go back and listen to Junior's conversation via podcast after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. Time now to kick off Hour 3 as we do every week. It is with the TwinSpires Triple Play. And my man Joe Kristufek is here. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Crossing days off the calendar. Been doing the morning workout show, and the time has come to put some horses in the starting gate at Churchill, draw the Oaks and Derby, and continue on to what should be just an absolutely phenomenal opening week.
Let me start there for a minute. You talk about the workouts, and obviously you're in tune with all of the Oaks and Derby horses because you're seeing them every day. We hear about horses, these young 3-year-olds, starting to blossom when they get to Kentucky, and that's usually a very good sign. Have you picked up on a horse or two that you see starting to kind of come into their own?
Well, I think when journalism left the womb, he was coming into his own.
Yeah.
He just absolutely looks phenomenal. I'll say the other horse that I had never seen in the flesh before that has really impressed me is Tapan Street for Brad Cox. He's only run 3 times, but, when horses first come into Churchill, they van in, they fly in, whatever they got to do, they quarantine, in regards to, the foreign horses. The first day on the track is always interesting because a lot of times, these horses don't know where they are. They're acclimating to completely new surroundings, and sometimes they get a little bit washy or get a little bit antsy. And you see that with some of these horses. And over the course of a few days, they start to get used to it and they calm down and they become, the horses that they were before they left wherever they came from. Tapan Street's first day we saw him, journalism first day we saw him, looked like they were just absolutely, completely comfortable on the racetrack and in their surroundings. Physical specimens, both of them. They're my 1-2 in the Derby right now, and not getting overly creative there, but they just check so many boxes, and just seeing them and their presence on the racetrack, that's kind of the finishing touches for me in my handicapping is what I see physically, how they're handling the lead up to the Derby, and both of those horses doing it very, very well.
Wow, can't wait. Again, it all kind of begins tonight, opening night, 5 p.m. Eastern, first post, and then you got the Derby and the Oaks draws. It's going to be an exciting night at Churchill, an exciting week to be part of for sure. Let's dive into the Triple Play, my man. You've chosen 3 races, obviously all 3 coming from Churchill, race 3, race 7, race 9. Race 3 is a 7-furlong starter allowance race, purse of $62,000, 7/8 of a mile on the main track, and number 6, Beach Bunny, is a horse that I think you have your eye on for a couple of reasons. Tell me why.
Well, it's not the strongest starter allowance race, for one. She's 15-1 in the morning line for 2. She really seemed to start coming into her own to a large extent toward the tail end of her campaign last year. She had the one race at Keeneland leading up to her start here at Churchill on opening night, and she ran okay. She didn't show the early speed that she normally does, but it was an off-track. She's never proven to handle an off-track before. We should have fast conditions on the main track for the racing card to kick things off at Churchill. And that was a racetrack at Keeneland that was kind of sort of inside favoring. So you put all those factors together, second race back off of the layoff. She's 15-1 in the morning line. I would be happy with 8 or 10-1 if the race doesn't fall apart on her. I just think first race of the Triple Play, where I give you this long shot, a square price, and one of the favorites in the featured race a little bit later on, I'm willing to take a chance with Beach Bunny in the starter allowance.
Her best race of her career, her only winning race, came in a $30,000 maiden claiming race at Churchill last October, Joe. She went wire to wire that day. She really hasn't been close to the lead since that effort. Do you see her being more forwardly placed in this spot?
Yeah, I noticed that as well. And a lot of times, Mike, when horses learn to harness their speed and settle and finish, they become better versions of themselves. I don't know if that's the case with Beach Bunny. I'm hoping she hasn't lost that. Like you said, she didn't show a lot of speed in her comeback race at Keeneland last out, but at the same time, she might not have been on the best part of the racetrack. She might have needed the start. Maybe she's just reinventing herself, and she, is turned into a horse that comes from out of it. Am I rushing to the windows to bet on her if she's one of the favorites or even a square price? Probably not. But I do think, like I said, at 15-1 in the morning line and the expected price, I think we're going to get. I do think she's offering value. Horse you want to use in the multi-race wagers, even if it's a B, and definitely want to use in the intra-race wagering strategies, exactas, tries, etc.
All right, we go from a 7-furlong sprint on the main track to a 1.25-mile test for the 3-year-old fillies. That is race number 7, run at the Derby distance. The ladies are going to go that classic distance. And by the way, post time for that 7th race, 8:37 Eastern tonight. Joe, this is a really intriguing race, and I got to tell you, the horse that you're leaning toward is a horse that I'm partial to only because of the name, Vino Tiempo.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, by Vino Rosso. And, like these 1.25-mile maiden special weight races, a lot of times these horses don't have a lot of speed. They haven't lived up to expectations. I know Churning Bernie's in there. She's had plenty of chances. She's a horse that I think has got a chance in this race as well. But I think the improvement has come with the blinkers on in recent starts for the top pick, who is 5-1 in the morning line. 2 races ago with blinkers on, and then the most recent start at Turfway, finishing a late closing second, and just made a big middle move on the racetrack that day. It's tough sometimes to gauge these Turfway horses running on the synthetic and then moving over to the dirt at Churchill, but there's reasons to believe that this horse will have no issues, might even be better on the dirt. I think the 1.25-mile distance is going to be within her scope. There seems to be, a fairly evenly matched group of horses in here that could potentially finally break their maiden. She hasn't had as many starts as some of the others, including Churning Bernie, who will be one of the favorites. So I thought 5-1 on the morning line was more than fair on a horse that I think will handle the distance that appears to be headed in the right direction.
Yeah, she'll be running at the end. There's no doubt about it. Corey Lannery, the irons for Thomas Vance, the trainer, number 8, Vino Tiempo, 5-1 on the morning line, the top pick of Joe in race number 7. Let's move on to race number 9. That is the 6-furlong Roxalena, 6-furlong sprint on the main track. It carries a purse of $200,000 in a very interesting race. Number 6, Harbor Springs for Greg Foley. Erod Ortiz Jr. is a filly that comes into the race on a 2-race win streak. Joe, does she make it 3?
Well, she was great at Stakes Place last spring, and then she kind of tailed off, and then they tried a couple different things with her. And then towards the end of the year, she was very impressive in a victory where she was extremely wide, finished with authority. Greg Foley brought her to Fairgrounds. I remember them entering her in a stake at Oaklawn that they scratched. They entered her in a turf sprint stakes that I thought she fit very well in at Fairgrounds, and she scratched. Finally, she got an opportunity to run at Fairgrounds, and she was every bit of as impressive in that victory as she was late last year when she won going away. She's been training great since then. I think she has a bullet workout coming into this. I think she's got a bright future moving forward. I think this is a fairly evenly matched edition of the Roxalena. And, Harbor Springs is 3-1 in the morning line. And I think anywhere close to that price would be fair. I think 5-2 would be fair actually on her. And just seems to be a filly to me that's coming into her own. And we might not have seen the best of her just yet.
I will recap Joe's top selections for you in this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. In race 3 at Churchill, he'll take number 6, Beach Bunny. Big price, 15-1 on the morning line. Race 7, he'll go with number 8, Vino Tiempo, Wine Time, at odds of 5-1. And in race number 9, number 6, Harbor Springs, at odds of 3-1. Don't forget, you can play each of those races in every race you're going to bet this weekend and throughout the upcoming week with TwinSpires. And, Joe, I know TwinSpires will have plenty of opportunities to reward horse players this coming week.
Yeah, we'll start with the money back offer, Mike, which is one of the more popular promotions that TwinSpires does, and that actually begins with the opening night card and lasts all the way through Kentucky Derby and eligible races. If you bet a horse to win, and again, your first win bet, after you've opted in, make sure you opt in, your first win bet, if you bet that horse to win and they run second or third, you'll get up to $10 back on those eligible races, so make sure you take advantage of that. It's some solid insurance on those win wagers. And again, opening night all the way through the final race on Kentucky Derby Saturday. And in addition to that, I know you're well aware that TwinSpires has gotten really big in the tournament game. Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge is coming up on Kentucky Derby Day. That's a $5,000 entry fee. I know like 50 or 60 people have earned their way in through qualifiers that have been held basically over the course of the last 6 or 8 months. There's still a couple of opportunities to qualify for the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. But like I've been telling people, if you can't afford, the $5,000 to get in, which many horse players can't, they want to try to invest their money in different places, get some friends together, even if you're getting people to invest in you that really don't know a whole heck of a lot about horse racing. It's like getting somebody to seed you in a poker tournament. Give yourself that opportunity. There's $250,000 on the line. There's seats to next year's Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, the NTRA, the NHC championship next year, and also the BCBC, $250,000, Kentucky Derby tickets for next year. It's a tournament that you definitely want to get involved in.
Well said, Joe Kristufek here on HRRN, the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe, appreciate the visit. Good luck with those picks and every bet you're going to make, not just tonight, but moving forward throughout the entire week.
Yeah, I've got a long list of stuff I need to do between now and next Saturday, Mike. I can cross the Triple Play off for now, and I will be adding several more things over the course of the next few hours and days. But always appreciate you, man, and I'm looking very forward to seeing you on the backstretch at Churchill Downs this coming week.
See you there, my man. Joe Kristufek on HRRN, the TwinSpires Triple Play. Again, bet all those races with TwinSpires. Coming up next, Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. Still to come, Dale and Tim with I Ask, They Answer. And I'm going to reveal the answer to this week's impossible trivia question right before we wrap things up at 10:55 Eastern or so. What Oscar-winning filmmaker was co-owner of 2003 Kentucky Derby fourth-place finisher? That's what I'm talking about. That's a tricky one. Let's see if you can get it. I'll reveal the answer coming up right around 10:55 Eastern. Back with Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It all comes down to this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
The moment that defines the year, when the world's most influential buyers gather, and every decision, every bid, every opportunity shapes the future. At a marketplace that brings the thoroughbred world together, and where futures are forged, because every moment matters. At the World's Yearling Sale, Keeneland, September.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu. Hey, this is Bobby Neuman. Join me every Friday afternoon to dive deep into handicapping the races. We'll cover the live action from some of the biggest tracks in the country, talk to some of the major players in the game, and hopefully make a little money along the way. You can also call the show to share your opinions, ask a question or two, or maybe just vent about some bad beats. It's Betting with Bobby every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, online channel 999, or streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He won one of the richest juvenile races in North America, but he struggled early as a 3-year-old before finding his best stride on Kentucky Derby Day. And he was known as a curious horse, which liked to observe his surroundings. His name was Venetian Way. Foaled on March 22, 1957 at Glencrest Farm of breeder John W. Greathouse in Midway, Kentucky, Venetian Way was a chestnut colt from the first crop by Royal Coinage out of Firefly by Papa Redbird. His sire was a stakes winner at Saratoga at 2, while his dam's lone victory came at a $2,500 claiming race in Nebraska. Isaac Blumberg, a native of Lithuania and a Chicago businessman, bought Venetian Way for $10,500 at the Keeneland July sales of 1958 on the advice of trainer Vic Savinsky. It was said that Savinsky liked the racy-looking colt so much that he had made repeated trips to the Glencrest consignment to look at him, telling Blumberg, "I don't care what else you buy, just promise me you'll buy that colt." Blumberg honored the request and named the colt Venetian Way after a thoroughfare in Miami, where Blumberg owned a winter residence. The colt himself was described as a striking chestnut with a blazed face, a white stocking on his left hind leg, and an alert, intelligent face. Savinsky described Venetian Way as not big but perfectly proportioned and well stacked, adding the colt had no bad habits and was a good workhorse. But Savinsky also admitted that the colt suffered from shin and stifle issues, which adversely impacted his racing schedule as a 2-year-old. Savinsky also said that other trainers sometimes seemed amused because it could take as much as 75 minutes for Venetian Way to make the trip from the barn to the track and back each morning. "He's interested in everything," said Savinsky. "He's always stopping and watching things. He leaves the barn at 7:30 for the track and gets back at 9:15. Other trainers like to give me a hard time about it, but I tell them if you had one as good as him, you'd wait on him too." Venetian Way began his racing career in South Florida early in 1959, racing in the name of Blumberg's Sunny Blue Farm and breaking his maiden at Hialeah. But after running 10th in the Hialeah Juvenile, he was given a few months' rest before returning late in the summer in Chicago and scoring his first stakes win in the Prairie State Stakes at Arlington Park. Just under 2 weeks later, on Labor Day, Venetian Way took his game to a new level when he rallied under jockey Mike Gonzalez to win the $184,000 Washington Park Futurity at Arlington before a crowd of 23,000 spectators. His time of 1 minute 15 and 4/5 seconds was a track record for 6.5 furlongs. Rumors began circulating that Blumberg had rejected 3 separate offers of $500,000 for his colt. This was a once-in-a-lifetime horse, as far as he was concerned, and Venetian Way was not for sale. Savinsky admitted that it made for a nerve-wracking situation to have a horse of that caliber in his barn, namely one he considered the best of his 21-year career. "You worry every time he walks, every time he gallops, every time he moves," said Savinsky. "He could ruin himself in the stall. He could be perfect today but not tomorrow. You worry about all your horses, but with the good ones, it's worse." Savinsky had more cause for concern after Venetian Way opened his 3-year-old season with a pair of 6th-place finishes in stakes races at Hialeah. But Savinsky discovered that the colt was suffering from an infection caused by bloodworms, and Venetian Way returned to the races after treatment with a track record equaling 6-furlong victory at Gulfstream Park in 1 minute 8 and 4/5 seconds. Venetian Way would make his next start in the Florida Derby at 1 1/8 miles, finishing second by a nose to Ballyache. And he would be second to the same horse on April 30th at Churchill Downs in the Stepping Stone Purse at 7 furlongs. Those finishing positions would be reversed on May 7th, 1960 in the 86th running of the Kentucky Derby. All told, Ballyache had beaten Venetian Way in 5 of their 6 prior meetings, but this time it would be different. On a chilly and cloudy afternoon at Churchill Downs, Venetian Way won the Roses with Bill Hartack in the irons by a widening 3.5 lengths as Ballyache crossed the wire in the runner-up position. Ballyache would regroup to win the Preakness 2 weeks later as Venetian Way ran 5th before Celtic Ash won the Belmont Stakes with Venetian Way finishing 2nd. Venetian Way notched his final career victory in July by equaling the track record at Washington Park at 1 1/8 miles in the Warren Wright Memorial in 1 minute 48 1/5 seconds, and he was retired from racing after a 3rd place finish in the Arlington Classic on July 23rd. Venetian Way joined the stallion roster for 1961 at Mare's Rest Farm of Joe Metz in Versailles, Kentucky, standing for a fee of $3,500. But he suffered a fractured hip in his paddock in October of 1964 and was humanely euthanized after siring 5 winners from 10 foals in his first crop of 2-year-olds that same year. As Kentucky Derby winners go, Venetian Way is likely considered average at best. As a stallion, he didn't sire enough crops to make a qualified judgment of his success. But he provided Blumberg and Savinsky with the greatest thrill in American racing, running the biggest race of his career on the first Saturday in May. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Great stuff from Kurt Becker. If you missed it, check out the podcast on our website, and don't miss our Betting with Bobby show every Friday from 4 to 6 Eastern. I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. Coming up next, this is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, this is Bobby Neuman. Join Jude Feld and me for our Derby Countdown shows Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week. We'll be broadcasting live from the backstretch at Churchill Downs. We'll speak with jockeys, trainers, owners, and handicappers, as well as bring you up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Run for the Roses. The Derby Countdown shows presented by Hillendale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday of Kentucky Derby Week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen live on Sirius 161, XM 206, or online at horseracingradio.net.
It all comes down to this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
The moment that defines the year, when the world's most influential buyers gather, and every decision, every bid, every opportunity shapes the future. At a marketplace that brings the thoroughbred world together, and where futures are forged, because every moment matters. At the World's Yearling Sale, Keeneland, September.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Here's Sandman threatening to run a big one, and Cole Battle, Speed King's done. Cornucopian, the dirt has turned into quicksand. He's done as they come to the top of the stretch here. Cole Battle, Sandman going at it, and Publisher trying to break his maiden in the Arkansas Derby. Cole Battle has lost the lead to Sandman. Publisher, the only threat to beat him. Sandman, he's green, drifting around here. It's Sandman in front by 2. Publisher is second, and Sandman, he's run his A race, and he gets a confidence booster heading to Kentucky. Sandman does it. The son of Tappan for Mark Cassie and Jose Ortiz win the Arkansas Derby over Publisher and Cole Battle.
Sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight. Sandman looking to take his competition off to Never Never Land in next Saturday's Kentucky Derby. And Hall of Fame rock band Metallica has sent T-shirts to the entire Mark Cassie barn this past week. And I say that he should be allowed to enter the paddock to the playing of Enter Sandman. Do Dale and Tim agree with me? Plus, buy or sell Rodriguez ending the 25-year Wood Memorial Kentucky Derby drought. And should the connections of the horse with the most Derby points get to choose their post position?
All of that and much, much more is straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, and all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. Located in the heart of horse country, let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
Guys, before we dive into the topics here on today's show, and a few of those submitted by our listeners, I want to recognize and say hello to Dan from Delaware, who sent an email to us this week. He said he enjoys listening to I Ask They Answer every Saturday morning, and we become a part of his Saturday morning routine. Just about every Saturday, he goes to Delaware Park, either for simulcasting or for live racing, and he normally gets to the track about 10:20, and he sits in the parking lot and listens to this show before he goes in. So, Dan, we appreciate the support, and thanks for listening to the program here this morning and every single week. Guys, the first question comes from Shane in North Carolina. With the Derby post position draw coming up tonight, should the connections of the horse with the most Derby points get to pick his post, and would you change anything about what we see with the post position draw right now? Tim, what do you think?
Well, I know we've talked about this before, and I think that, if you get a lot of points and you play in the game all spring, I think you should get the opportunity to pick first. If that was the case this year, Burnham Square would get the number one pick, followed by Sandman. I know Mark Cassie's been a proponent of this to reward the horses that accumulated the most points. I mean, if there were more horses running in California, journalism would have 160 points and probably be the top point getter. But yeah, I think that there's something to that. I don't know what they would do with the Japanese horses because they don't have any points, and where would they pick? But I like the idea of giving the horses with the most points a little bit of a reward for doing what they've done.
Mark wouldn't like it either if he had the 20th points on the list. The Derby's different than every other race. If we handicap, every other handicap race penalizes the best horse to try to make it more equal. Whatever you do around the country, the best 20 come to the Kentucky Derby. Equal weights, equal draw, no favoritism. May the best horse win. It should stay that way forever.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you have a horse with the most points and he gets the worst post position, is that fair? Doesn't make him the best horse, even though he has the most points. If you want to do a ranking system, you can do all kinds of things. But no, everything's out the window. When you're one of the 20 best 3-year-olds and you come to the Kentucky Derby, everything's equal. For the next 2 weeks when you're here in Kentucky, it's all equal. You get to train at the same time every day. You get to run with the same weight as everyone else in the race, and everybody gets an equal draw. Well, we agree to disagree on this one.
Well, no, we'll agree that you're wrong.
Dad, you mentioned Mark Cassie, and he met with the media this week. He is a proponent of the horse with the most points getting to pick their position and just kind of going in order of the points with horses selecting their post. For example, if you're last to qualify, last on the list of points, you should be the last to get a post position, is what he said. But he also feels that if they did it that way, horses competing along the road to the Kentucky Derby may be more inclined to run in another race or two to try to get some extra points to get a better post position pick. Agree or disagree with that?
Like I said, I would like to hear Mark's comments if he had the 20th most points. If he was number 20 coming into it, it'd probably be a lot different. It's easy to say when you're number 2.
Yeah, he did say that. He said, listen, this year it would benefit me. It wouldn't benefit me every single year.
No. What do you do with the Japanese horses? They have no points.
Exactly. Equal draw. Big bracket at 20 hole. Didn't bother him.
Yep. I think, is it just post 17 that has not produced a Derby winner?
I think that's it. Yeah, the one the worst. You don't want to one, but that's not even that big a deal, I don't believe, since they went to the single gate system. The horse, the one hole's not quite as far behind the rail as it used to be. You got a mile and a quarter and make it up. I don't think the post position is going to get many of these horses beat.
All right, Shane in North Carolina, as always, appreciate the question. We move on to another listener-submitted question. This one comes from Rick in Sacramento, California. Rick's been watching the workouts and the videos of all the works from Churchill Downs, and he has a couple questions about what he calls team works or horses working in company together. Dale, what's the intention of those types of workouts, and how does a trainer select the matchups?
Usually it's just to keep a horse focused while they're working. It's and I guess they got everybody has a horse in the barn. They know it's talented, can keep up, but they're still not one to go all out. I usually don't do that. I quit working them in teams after they start running. I still work them by themselves, and that's kind of a new turn in the last 20 years or so that my generation of trainers started doing more of than they used to. I'd rather them go by themselves and go nice and relaxed. Other people think they need to get on the bit, be a little bit aggressive, pull against the rider, have a little competition. But if you notice, they usually always end up pretty close together at the end. They're not all out.
Well,
now,
Rick also
kind of lazy and doesn't want to work, isn't a really good workhorse, but some of them aren't. Then the competition helps.
Yeah, Rick also wants to know how you keep a horse from becoming discouraged if they lose a team workout like that.
That's a good question. I don't know. I would venture to say the one losing the team workout is usually not the top horse in the barn.
Tim, do you put any additional stock in horses that work well and do it in company as opposed to alone?
Nope.
Doesn't matter.
Nope, doesn't matter to me.
No, as long as they're moving good and they look like they're into what they're doing, they finish up good. You know, one of the most important things about a work, and nobody can see it but maybe the trainer and the rider that's on the horse, is recovery time afterwards. I think as a trainer, to me, that's more important than anything. When a horse, like my stand is where I'll clock comes at the half-mile pole, so we'll work. They'll gallop around, pull up in front of me, stop, turn out, and walk back off the racetrack. If one has a nice work and they come back blowing and prancing and a little bit rattled, that's not good. If they pull up, the good ones always pull up, take a couple of deep breaths, and walk back, and you can't tell if they're going on the racetrack or off the racetrack. The recovery time to me is really important. Now, that would never be seen by the general public. But from a training perspective, I think that's as important as anything there is in a work.
Dale, do you put a lot of thought and time into, if you do work a horse in company with another horse, of who goes with who? Do you try to match them up by ability, or do you want to get your better horse the confidence and go in company against a horse that can't beat him?
Perfect scenarios, you got two that are just going to go ahead and head all the way around there and be at about 80% of full speed. That's what you would like to see if you're working in company. But with my younger horses, the babies, want to be a little more mature than the next, I try to pair them up to what talent level and who's on what fitness level, maturity level, and all those horses. Up until they run the first time, I'm usually working them in company. And you like to have them with horses, and you like to have them working with a horse that's pretty equal.
Dale, if you had horses that have surprised you with their workmates that did better than you thought they would against a horse that you thought might be superior?
Yeah, that's usually not a very good surprise. usually means your superior horse didn't work very good.
Right. But it also
and
means
that
you might have...
But I won't mention any names, but that.
Okay.
But the worst thing to do is you put one out there in front of them, and you want your really good horse to sit behind and run past them, and they can't catch the rabbit.
Right.
That's the worst thing.
It's an interesting question. Rick in Sacramento, we appreciate that. If you have a question for Dale and Tim, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, or post it on our social media pages, and we will do our best to work your questions into the show going forward. Guys, time to say hello to no, not yet. We're going to put Nick Zito on hold for a minute. It is time for another topic, and we're going to call this one Buy or Sell, because we like doing this. We have two buy or sell topics for you here this morning. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the coach, D. Wayne Lucas, being elected to Horse Racing's Hall of Fame. That occurred April 27th, $19.99. Next week, Lucas is going to look to saddle his 5th Kentucky Derby winner with American Promise. Are you buying or selling the coach's chances next Saturday? Dale Romans.
Always buying the coach. Never throw him out.
You can't not buy Lucas. So I guess I would. I mean, you can't sell Lucas. I think I'd buy him too. I mean, he had 50 horses starting the Derby. He's got 4 wins. Just when you think he's not going to win, he wins. Look at Charismatic, Thunder Gulch. Those horses, Thunder Gulch, paid $51. Charismatic, $64. Now, American Promise is by Justify. He kind of maybe surprised people when he won the Virginia Derby by 7 3/4 lengths in track record time. He ran the fastest mile and an eighth of any prep race this season. But, before that, he took him 6 tries to break his maiden, then he was 7th in the Southwest, 5th in the Risen Star. He kind of snuck up on people. Because it's Lucas, you can't dismiss him. But his track record at the Derby, since Charismatic, he's had 15. Since Charismatic in '99, he's had 15 stars in the Derby, with 1 second. I mean, last year, I think he had Just Steel was his first starter since 2018. He's 89 years old. He's still going strong. I'm not going to sell him, but it's also going to be a lucrative buy for me.
And nobody.
I'm not buying the horse. I'm buying the trainer. The horses look good though training. I'll say that all week. He's looked really good.
Nobody pulls a rabbit out of a hat like Dwayne Lucas. He's proven that over the years. Yep, he loves it.
He loves it when nobody expects him to do anything. Loves that.
Yeah, win when the whole world is watching, right?
Yeah, that's always been his motto.
Yep. Yeah, well, we'll see if the coach can pick up number 5 next Saturday. How about this one? All week long here on HRN, we have been celebrating Fusaichi Pegasus Week, which has been presented by our friends at Keeneland Sales. Fupeg is the last horse to win both the Wood Memorial and the Kentucky Derby, but that was 2.5 decades ago. Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith says this year's Wood winner, Rodriguez, is a serious Derby contender. Guys, are you buying or selling that the Wood Derby drought will come to an end next Saturday? Tim?
I'm selling. I mean, because, Rodriguez had everything his own way in the Wood on a fast track that day. He ran the second fastest mile and an eighth time for a Derby prep, won by 3.5 lengths going away. He's going to have company on the front end. I mean, horses like East Avenue and Citizen Bull, Owen Almighty, even Admired Daytona from Japan. And the Wood, again, it just hasn't produced serious Derby winners. The last 10 runnings of it, the best finishes was the third by Tacitus in 19. Other than that, a lot of them have really had their heads handed to them. Rodriguez, he also was not considered Bob's Bafford's, first stringer. He might be now, and he was definitely impressive that day. But he'd have to show it again, and he's not going to have everything go his own way up front. So if that's the way he goes, so I don't see Rodriguez winning this race.
It's hard to sell Bob Baffert and Mike Smith, but they're sold. Come on, Lee. Where's our sound effect? Where's that? There you go. Thank you. Yeah, sell. Just not good enough. I agree. He wasn't Bob's best number 1 horse. He's just the one that lasted the longest. I think Bob's going to have to wait a year or two to win the Derby again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out next Saturday. All right, I mentioned Nick Zito. We don't like to put Nick on hold for very long, so it is time to say hello to our good friend. And Dale and Tim, you get to tell me if the following statement is indeed right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Okay, Hall of Fame rock band Metallica has jumped on the Sandman bandwagon, sending Metallica t-shirts to the entire Mark Casse barn. I say horses competing in big stakes races should have walk-up music like they do in other sports when entering the paddock or coming onto the racetrack for the post parade. Imagine Enter Sandman playing as the Big Gray enters the new amphitheater-style paddock next Saturday. Are you guys with me, right or wrong?
What do you think, right or wrong?
Dale, right or wrong?
100% right, but it should be, since we're in Kentucky, the bluegrass version done by an iron horse. If you've never heard it, pull it up on YouTube.
A bluegrass version of Enter Sandman?
Enter Sandman. You don't think you never heard it? You need to pull it up by Iron Horse.
I will do that.
Tim, I want Lee to play it on the show next week.
I think it's a cool idea, but I don't know how they would do it for 20 horses if they're all walking into the paddock at the same time. I mean, you'd have you wouldn't be able to play the walk-up music for very long for each horse. And obviously you can't do it when you're going out on the track because that's reserved for my old Kentucky home. And at the Preakness in Maryland, New York for the Belmont. So I think it's a cool idea, but I don't know the logistics, how they could do it with 20 horses.
Well, I think you'd have to change the way that the horses come into the paddock. You'd have to space them out a little bit more, which changes your walkover, and I don't know how easily that could be done, but you'd have to space it out just a little bit so you could play a snippet of each song for each designated horse.
Then the race would be going off at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's logistically impossible. The Enter Sandman bluegrass version, let's just do one horse. The rest of them play a theme from Rocky. They're all underdogs.
Wait, does that mean Sandman is your top pick?
I think he's going to be. At the end of the day, him or Sovereignty, I haven't locked in yet, but it's one of those two.
Music to the ears of Junior Alvarado, who was with me earlier in the show talking about Sovereignty. All right, we'll bring Nick Zito back for that segment next week. I think it's a great idea to have walk-up music or music for each horse in a graded stakes race when they come onto the track in races that aren't the Kentucky Derby. So just a grade one at Keeneland on a Saturday afternoon, you bring the horses out and you have some kind of walk-up music as they're introduced. I don't know. I'm thinking out of the box, but I think it could be kind of cool.
Again, I don't know how you would do it. If you just you bring one horse out at a time, the other horses are just going to be sitting there waiting. I don't know if that works.
Yeah, it could be a nightmare. But I just kind of like the idea to freshen it up a little bit.
Too. I do too.
Yeah. Yep.
Next topic.
Next topic comes from Tom in St. Louis. It's our last topic before our West Point of the week. Netflix, guys, debuted a new racing documentary this past week titled Race for the Crown. Dale, you were featured in the 2007 documentary First Saturday in May, and Tom wants to know your thoughts on camera crews following your horses, you and your staff around all the time, and is it good for future business, or is it some kind of inconvenience for you and for the team?
It was never an inconvenience for me. First Saturday in May when I met the Hennigan brothers, I never thought this was going to be a movie, and John and Brad both became really good friends. Actually, I'm waiting John to be in here in a couple of days to stay with us all week. We never thought it was going to be a film, so he got a lot of open access. Some of that cutting room floor would have made a good movie, more like Hangover than it was First Saturday in May. But, no, it never did bother anything. But, no, the Paramount one that they did on Netflix a few years ago, 7 Days Out, that was a little more intense, but it's good for the game. Get it out there. Show them what we all do.
Tim, these types of documentaries are appealing to those of us in the industry. Do they really generate much interest in the sport from people on the outside looking in? What do you think?
I do. You see documentaries about boxers. Do people that not follow boxing, they'll watch them. About football, if you're not a football fan, people do watch them. If it's an interesting story, they're going to watch it. I've had people talk to me about this series. I haven't seen it yet. I will. And they've told me they've seen it, and they're not horse racing fans, but they said they loved it. And if it's a compelling story, people are going to tune in. I just think that's the way. And people love to watch good stories. And the true life sports documentaries have always been popular. I'm not going to say that I'm going to watch documentaries on soccer because I'm not a soccer guy, but just about any other sport, I'll watch it, and it's something that people do get interested in. And just one last point, I think we all should have walk-up music when we come on this show.
Now that
what do you
I'll
want?
go for.
What do you want, Tim? What's your walk-up music?
Well, I don't know yet, but I think we should have it. I don't know if our man Lee can do that.
Yeah, give me another one, Bites the Dust.
Take my hand off to Never, Never Land.
There you go, Dale.
You didn't believe it, did you?
I did not. Tim, I think that proves Lee can do it.
That sounded straight out of hillbilly land.
That's where we are. And we're proud to be here.
Bluegrass music, brother. We got to teach you a few things.
Well, I think next week we should get our own walk-up songs. We should think about what they want to be.
Right.
All right. We'll do it.
All right. My final points is going to be I've been standing out there watching these Derby horses train. I tell you what, they all look good. It looks like a good sound bunch, and it's going to be an exciting week. That's it.
So I guess you jumped ahead of me. So my last point of the week, congratulations to Smarty Jones, who was elected to the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame. He's the only one elected. 7 trainers, a jockey, and 7 other horses didn't get enough votes. That's something we could talk about another day. But
mind-boggling.
Smarty Jones.
Yeah, mind-boggling. I voted for several of those trainers and a couple of those other horses too, Tim. And I was shocked to see Smarty Jones is the only name that got in.
Topic for next week.
Yep. We'll bring that one back. We'll bring back some.
We do need to talk about that. Maybe not next week on Derby week, but one of these days we need to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll bring back some walk-up music for Dale and Tim. Stay tuned for that next week. Guys, appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, we'll do it all over again next week. That West Point of the Week brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. Remember that owning a racehorse with West Point Thoroughbreds means that you are in the care of complete professionals who guide you through your entire ownership journey. You'll get instant access to the highest levels of racing, world-class trainers, jockeys, racetracks, and, of course, your horse. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. I Ask the Answer is presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with the answer to this week's impossible trivia question next on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Whoa! Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woo-hoo. Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie. So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Remember the last time your family visited the forest? It's a place of wonder and imagination for the whole family, where stories come to life. And it's closer than you think. Ready to plan your next visit? Make the forest part of your story today at a local park near you, or find one at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and 2 of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. VetTix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
HRRN is proud to bring you the Derby Countdown. Bobby Neuman and Jude Feld will broadcast live from trackside and bring you interviews with trainers, jockeys, owners, and other racing insiders. Plus, keep you informed with up-to-the-minute news leading up to the Kentucky Derby. The Derby Countdown, presented by Hill and Dale at Alapa, Tuesday through Thursday morning during Derby Week at Churchill Downs. Go to horseracingradio.net for more information or to listen live. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Lionheart turns for home, and undefeated Smarty Jones comes wide off the turn, and these two hook up at the top of the sprint. Lionheart is all heart, Smarty Jones is all out, and those two deadlocked at the 8th pole, and Smarty Jones is roused to the lead by journeyman jockey Stuart Elliott, and they have taken the lead away from Lionheart. Farther back, it's Limehouse and Imperialism. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle Slough in 1977. Smarty Jones has done it. Limehouse was second. Imperialism finished third. And Limehouse was fourth. What a moment this must be for Stuart Elliott. A 39-year-old journeyman. He has just won the race of a lifetime.
Yeah, did he ever? Tom Durkin with the call of that 2004 renewal of the Kentucky Derby, going to Smarty Jones, the newest member of Horse Racing Hall of Fame, being voted in this week. He is the only member of the candidates on the ballot this year to get in, which to me is a bit mind-boggling. I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. But it is time to pass along the answer to this week's impossible trivia question. Lee Delapina has the answer. Lee?
Thank you, Mike. What Oscar-winning filmmaker was co-owner of 2003 Kentucky Derby fourth-place finisher? That's what I'm talking about. The answer, of course, is Steven Spielberg.
There you go. I hope you got it. We'll be back with another impossible trivia question on next week's Equine Forum, so stay tuned for that. So, in order to be elected to the Hall of Fame, you have to receive 50% of the vote. Doesn't matter if you get 49, you're not going to get in. You have to get at least 50% of the vote. Only one horse did that. One candidate did that. That was Smarty Jones, which means horses like Groupie Doll are left on the outside looking in. And I thought Groupie Doll was close to a cinch to get in as a first ballot Hall of Famer of any horse that we have seen. I didn't see any way Groupie Doll wasn't getting in to this year's Hall of Fame. A two-time Eclipse Award champion female sprinter, wins the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint in back-to-back years, 2012 and 2013, and she wins 12 of 23 lifetime starts, more than $2.6 million in earnings. If that ain't Hall of Fame worthy, I don't know what is. I'm shocked. And I also don't know what more rags to riches would have had to do in her career. Now, I get that she only raced 7 times, but she won 5 of those. Finished second 1 time. And she won the Belmont Stakes. She beat the boys at 1.5 miles in 2007. And it wasn't just – she beat Curlin. And we know how good Curlin became as his career progressed. So I don't know what more rags to riches would need to do to get into the Hall of Fame, and I don't know why she continues to be overlooked. Those two are – how about Lady Eli? I think you can make a case for Lady Eli. 14 starts, 10 wins, 3 seconds for Lady Eli. The Eclipse champion turf female of 2017. She wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf in 2014. Then she has all the health issues. She comes back and finishes a very game second in the 2016 running of the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare turf. I think she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, maybe I'm being a little liberal, but I try to be I try to be as selective as possible because it is a tremendous honor. But I think when you have a horse like this, and like Groupie Doll, and like Rags to Riches that did exceptional things in their career, they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. On the trainer side, how about Doug O'Neill? I don't get this one. Doug O'Neill, to me, already has a Hall of Fame resume. There might be others on the ballot that you could question and say, okay, they need to win a Triple Crown race, or they need to win a couple more Breeders' Cup races, and eventually they'll be in. But Doug O'Neill is closing in on 3,000 career victories. He has 2,990 sitting here today. He's won 2 Kentucky Derbies, he's won a Preakness, and he's won 5 Breeders' Cup races. How does that not make you a Hall of Famer? Some people will say, okay, well, he's had medication violations. Okay, well, if you're going to look at it that way and say we're going to keep him out because of that, how about taking a look at Graham Motion, who is squeaky clean, has been for his entire career, 2,789 career wins. He's won the Derby, and he's won 4 Breeders' Cup races. I think that's pretty solid. I guess you could say, okay, he needs to win one more Triple Crown race. Maybe a Preakness, maybe a Belmont, and then he'll get in. I don't know. But to me, his resume is extremely solid. I think even Kieran. Many people might think he's kind of a fringe player here, but Kieran McLaughlin, 1,577 wins, a Belmont, and 3 Breeders' Cup wins. Pretty strong. Again, you can make the case that he needed to win one more Triple Crown race to guarantee himself a plaque in Saratoga Springs. I don't know. Going to continue to talk about that on I Ask the Answer with Dale and Tim. We'll do that in the weeks ahead. A Derby edition of that show coming your way next week, and the entire Equine Forum. If you missed any portion of today's show, including our conversation about the workouts that took place at Churchill this morning, that great conversation with Jockey Junior Alvarado about sovereignty, all you have to do is head back to the website, check out the podcast whenever you get some time, and you can do that too on every podcast platform. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, and to all of our guests for making this show possible, and to each and every one of you for tuning in again here this morning. I certainly appreciate that. I'm Mike Penna. We'll talk to you next week here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Go Steelers.